Okay, we'll call this back into order, and I'm going to go ahead and exercise my option again that you guys, lady, gave me. We have another individual that needs to get on and get back to work and other things, so we're going to move, stay in regular items. We're going to go to item number 2, Rodney. Discussion and possible action on award of RFQ number 2021-002Q to High Mountain Concessionaire, LLC, in agreement to operate concessions, retail, and on-site rentals of personal watercraft at Alto Lake.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. So this RFQ was published through the purchasing department. We had one proposal come back. It was from High Mountain Concessionaires. Their proposal, the revenue to the village includes a $2,000 monthly rate for the vending rights, $10 per rented hour for each of the watercraft, 20% of their retail operations, and their retail includes concession to be operated 7 days a week during the summer from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Let's see. They also have an additional concept that they're proposing of operating during restaurant hours during the evening outside of those concession hours. That restaurant would be based upon an Italian menu. The days of operation would be Thursday through Sundays from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And possible other high season or dates throughout the year, particularly high event weekends and holidays. The agreement also does include it's their responsibility to pay for all of the utilities to operate that business as well. Part of their proposal also includes being a licensed vendor for the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish for fishing license sales. And just as an FYI, that's also going to be extended to the grindstone operation as well. They will be offering license sales at the lake as well.
That's great.
And these are the people that were at Grindstone last year?
Yes, sir. The High Mountain Concessionaires happen to be the same vendor at Grindstone Lake.
Okay. Any questions of Rodney?
Rodney, that 20% of retail sales, does that extend to the dinner operations they're proposing as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Mayor, and being in the food business, that's tough.
That's a lot.
That is.
Well, I just want to do it.
I don't know how he's going to do it, but
Mayor, I move to award RFQ 2021-002Q to High Mountain Concessionaire LLC, an agreement to operate concession, rental, and on-site rentals of personal watercraft at Alto Lake.
Second.
any further discussion?
I just want to go back to the question about the water boats that we were talking about as far as the numbers and all that. Entered into discussions with them about the numbers.
Yes, sir. So after the workshop meeting, I did visit with the vendor and I let them know that that the numbers for watercraft are going to have to be approved by the village, that we were not interested in having that capacity anywhere near of what Grindstone was. And they were in understanding and felt the same way. They don't want to overpopulate the lake, and we'll be sure and work with them to meet to make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? And there's a lot of profit in flour, and we don't have the menu to see what the final price is. And if some places can do 50% off, buy one, get one free, I bet they can do it.
Yeah.
Pizza and pasta. Mr. Santa.
Italian food's pretty cheap to produce.
Councillor Salas,
Aye.
Councillor Coughlin,
Aye.
Councillor Jackson, Councillor Cornelius, Counselor Letterman.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thank
All
you.
right, exciting stuff. Item number 4, discussion and possible action on a request for capital improvement funds for the Parks and Recreation Department to be used for park improvements in the amount of $796,764.00, including gross receipts tax. Yes, sir, Rodney.
My question, Rod, is how much did lodger's tax approve this morning?
So Counselor Salas, I did present this to the Lodgers Tax Board this morning, and I would prefer to go over these line item by line item. I won't get into the detail, but break it down per facility.
Okay,
So for the Eagle Creek Sports Complex, they did approve $400,000 for the paving.
okay,
For the Grindstone Lake improvements, they approved $97,000 for those listed improvements.
Okay.
For the Alto conceptual plan, they did approve the $191,327. And then, not on this list, it was on the list presented to lodgers tax. I believe the number was $19,400 for to replace all of the benches in Midtown that are kind of coinciding with the sidewalk project. And to be real clear, it's not only the benches on the south side of the road, it's the benches on both the north and the south side of the road throughout the Midtown area.
does that include like from Chase to the traffic light too? Those blue metal ones?
No, sir,
No?
it just
Okay.
includes from North Grindstone to Country Club.
Okay,
I'm sorry, the bench total is on here, it's 19,200, sorry.
200.
Just trying to squeeze another $200.
So I did catch in portion of, or your section there, what about the stage?
So, I believe available funds, did not permit them
Okay.
to, fund that at this time. They did express an interest, and I believe they would be willing to reconsider it, as we continue to collect, the revenue, but, again, there were not enough available funds.
That was actually pushed.
Need a microphone. But they were very energetic about the idea, but it has to do with their funding cycle,
Yep,
and they're going to try to pick it up in July.
Yes, they actually moved that funding request to fiscal year '22.
okay. So is this the total that they allotted for you then? Whatever this total's up to?
707 is what I
Yes,
got.
sir.
What's the total, Rodney?
I'm sorry, I do not have that. I have the grand total.
What's the grand total?
Well, the grand total for everything.
790,
What you just read off is $707,520, $707,527.
Does that mean we didn't get the White Mountain master plan?
Yes, and it's not in this.
The White Mountain Master Plan was not listed, and I apologize, the way I understood from the workshop meeting is that something that we would consider out of the general fund. And if I apologize if I made a mistake.
We're all looking at you, Judy.
Yeah, what's the total amount, Judy?
So there was just a little bit of a difference on one of the amounts by a couple hundred, so it's 707,840.
707,840.
Which I would know does not include the White Mountain Master Plan.
So that 700 was in the current year, and then the 158 and the 66, whatever that is, 224 something, is in fiscal year '22.
Which starts July 1st.
Yes.
So Mayor, I move to approve the capital improvement funds for the Parks and Recreation Department to be used for park improvements in the amount of $707,840, including gross receipt tax.
Second.
Okay, any final discussion?
I'm just so thankful that allowed that much, that I'm very thankful for that.
And Mayor, if I may, so again, back to that, so I did not include the master plan on their budget request, but if you all would consider funding that out of the general fund, or I believe that is an item that you all have expressed, the desire to move forward on that. And I did update the scope of work on that based upon your comments from the workshop.
Okay.
And just that, they did not change the overall dollar amount. They did take out from the scope, we did remove the scope of work, the consideration of evaluating the links because that was no longer needed. But they did add in an architect for the possibility of considering a recreation complex, like an aquatic center or a rec center. So the amount stayed the same, but the scope of work was updated, not only those items, but to include the 2 properties that were recently acquired.
What was that amount? Can you remind me?
It was $108,437, which does include GRT.
Okay, to be considered.
And a number of these items at Grindstone, you said you're ready to go with them, and we can have them done before summer?
Yes, there are a few, and then I'll continue to work through with Eric and Randy to initiate the process for getting the permits for items that either need to be permitted through the dams or Dam Safety Bureau or
Whatever.
the Army Corps. Whatever department.
Yeah. So when it comes to that White Mountain Recreational Complex plan, I propose a 50-50 split. We can call it the Rodney Griego White Mountain Recreation Complex Master Plan. It's only $54,000 apiece.
So if you want the 50 for me, I have an idea where to get it from.
No, just kidding.
Manager, do you have something?
Mayor, you asked the question, I was gonna ask Rodney what that dollar amount was.
Okay. Okay, so we have a first and a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Mr. Senna.
Mayor, just for clarification, did we include the master plan or not?
No.
No.
No, it was just what he listed,
We'll have to come back with a master plan request.
yes.
During budget.
Mr. Mayor, it seemed to me from our previous discussions, there was a lot, that there was a concern over what was actually the village's responsibility and what actually fell to the educational facilities that abut that, and how that was going to divide out. If we were going to have a master plan going forward, it had to be consensual with both parties, and there wasn't exactly the feeling that we had that yet.
And Rodney, you were going to go to their meeting when they have it, right?
Yes, sir. So I did visit with one of the school board members. They have initiated their 5-year plan, but they had a kickoff meeting, but haven't had any meetings after that point. He did reassure me that the village will be included in their 5-year plan. But it's more of, I'm just providing, participating. They have expressed desire to complete these both plans in conjunction at the same time. So we are on the same page. But as far as any financial contributions, I wouldn't expect any.
So we're going to have to do the White Mountain. We've discussed that already. To do those other 2 properties, the overall aspect of what we're going to be able to do. I think it's worth considering to move forward, unless y'all have a good reason not to.
In this fiscal year? Get started now?
Because Judy's over there giving me one of these.
We have the funding for this year?
We need to get you guys a mic of your own.
Mayor, councilors, you have 3 options. We do still have some CARES Act money that's available. I believe it's at $700,000. You could actually increase some budget GRT revenues to offset the cost. As I told you, we were up already $1 million. Or number 3, you could actually take it from cash balance.
Judy, if I may, I'm not sure how the schedule would affect the funding, but I mean, this entire process is gonna be around a 9 to 10 month process, so I mean, it would overlap fiscal years. I'm not sure how, if that has any impact on the funding decision.
Okay, so you say wait?
No, I'm saying we could initiate it, but we're not gonna have to pay the entire $107,000
No
before
cigar on that
July.
one.
Yeah, we need to move forward on it
So-
regardless, yeah.
So, I mean, in order to initiate it, he'll need a PO, and in order to get a PO, we'll need budget. So it would be better if we allocate the money in the current fiscal year, and then if you don't pay it all out, I can just roll it over, which would be easier on us.
Okay.
We'll need a separate motion and stuff. It's not in the one that was made.
And the reason why, because it wasn't brought up through lodger's tax on that part,
I know,
so,
that's why we need a separate
right.
deal on that.
Mayor, and just from clarification, my understanding, we're gonna go to them and request it, but the original request did include the White Mountain Master Plan.
The 796.
So we went to them and got funded what they would fund, and then that's, my understanding is that we're requesting the whole thing today.
796,
But
764.
what they approved was that 707.
Yeah, because that's all they had left in their budget.
Right.
So if you add so if they approve 707 and you add 108, that takes you above the 796.
The stage.
The stage?
I may have done some poor math.
So on the lodger's tax request, which is not on this request, there was a mobile stage and a lighting and sound package. I believe the stage was at $158,000 and the package was $66,021.
So the question begs, what is the number to approve? If we approve the 796, 764, it includes the items that Rodney's asked for, plus the 180 for the White Mountain Master Plan,
108,
108.
108, 437. But the 796 doesn't include the stage information that's at least in here.
Right, that is correct.
Okay, so, Mayor and councilors, the first three requests on this are already, will be budgeted through lodger's tax with an additional allocation in 22 for the stage and the lighting sound package. The only thing that would be outside of lodger's tax would be the White Mountain Complex at 108, 437.
Okay, so do we need a separate line item to approve the 108?
Mayor, my recommendation is a friendly amendment to the motion to add 108,437 out of general fund, either cash balance, CARES fund, or increased revenues from this current year.
I like the GRT, the option 2 that you gave.
But you have a motion, an amendment before you, so
Right.
are you up with it or no?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you, would you,
Yes.
Let's get it done.
So I'll accept the friendly amendment to include 108,437 for the White Mountain Master Plan.
So moved.
And you accepted it? Okay. Any other discussion?
Mayor, it sounded like the preference come out of the gross receipts tax.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if we can just document that, Ron, so that it's in the record.
You ready, Ron?
So we're going to go with the motion by Counselor Salas and on the friendly amendment, and then the second by Counselor Cornelius. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson, Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rodney.
Thanks, Rodney.
Thanks,
Did-
Rodney.
did
Mayor, I
we
believe
vote
that
on
was
the
a
original
vote on the
motion
amendment.
or
Now
the
you got to vote on the
707?
original motion.
Did that include the 707?
Because Ron said this was on the amendment.
No, he said with the amendment.
Oh,
With
with
the
the
amendment.
amendment. Okay, thank you. Yes.
It was a friendly amendment, not a formal amendment.
Right.
actually voted on as two different items.
Correct.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
All right, Mr. Santa, I want you to bird dog me and make sure I'm doing right. So we'll go back to village manager's report and get to hear the weed update. Councilor Salas is wanting to know when he can smoke on the back of his deck.
That's right.
That,
Are we on marijuana?
Yes.
Literally?
Marijuana.
I like how you try to pronounce that on the radio.
How I tried to pronounce it.
You try.
I tried.
Just remember, for some of us, it's always Mary Jane.
Mary Jane, yeah. Okay, floor's yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and councilors. So we finally passed a marijuana bill after several attempts. And this one, I'll go over the highlights. It's a 172-page bill that I really got to confess I haven't read word for word. I've skimmed it several times looking for different parts of it that I learned about it. And in particular for today's meeting, I went through it with Sam and we looked for the stuff that would be most important to you guys as leaders of the town and how it'll affect the village and all municipalities really. So the first thing, it legalizes recreational marijuana use for anyone over 21 years of age. And then it creates a new section of the Tax Administration Act, creating a new excise tax that would require a distribution of 33.33% of excise tax on marijuana to the municipalities. Recreation will be taxed as usual, but any marijuana that's sold under the medical program will continue to not be taxed. So there will be a difference there, but I suspect there will be a lot of taxes coming in. Well, I mean, that's what.
Or a lot of people still trying to get their medical card so that they don't have to pay the tax.
Oh yeah, yep. There was also a lot of debate about, a lot of people were worried that because of the recreational use, then the supply for medical is going to go down. I can't remember what, I think the bill ultimately required that 10% of production has to be reserved for medical use, but there's still a lot of debate whether or not that's going to be sufficient for medical use. I communicated with the municipal league with their lawyer Clinton Nicely, and he helped me put together a bullet point list. And one of his bullets says that it affords control to local jurisdictions for, among other things, limiting the density of licenses and operating times, establishing certain distances between micro businesses and a school or daycare center. I'll get to it in a minute, but there are two sections in the bill that are particularly of particular importance to you guys in municipalities. One is what it does grant you the authority to do versus what it expressly prohibits you from regulating these businesses. And then the second one, there is some safeguards for employers in dealing with employees that you'll probably want to hear about. My favorite part is that it prohibits persons from being subject to professional discipline, denied a professional or occupational license, or denied parental rights because of conduct permissible under the act. So I get to smoke marijuana and still be a licensed attorney. I'm kidding. That's not really I'm not too worried about it. And then any adult can grow on their own in their home up to 6 mature plants and have 6 not mature plants, with a maximum of 12 plants per household. And then it creates a misdemeanor if people are selling pot in an unlicensed situation. So the Section 12 of the Act is where it expressly says what you guys can do, what a municipality can, what a local government can do and not do. And give me a minute to find that. Oh, man. So section 12 says, a local jurisdiction may, one, adopt time, place, and manner rules that do not conflict with the Cannabis Regulation Act or the D. Johnson Clean Indoor Air Act, including rules that reasonably limit density of licenses and operating times consistent with neighborhood uses. The trick there is that time, place, and manner rules, those are all First Amendment constitutional questions. So we're gonna, if you guys want to place restrictions on time, use, and manner, that's a free speech commercial speech issue. And we're gonna have to be very careful in you, Ruidoso, and all of the local governments, because there's no question, I mean, I think that it's very foreseeable that some local government is gonna pass time, place, and manner restrictions on these businesses and on their advertising that's gonna end up somewhere in the court. So I doubt you want to be the test case on that, but we'll just have to tiptoe through that as you guys decide how you're going to want to regulate it. Local jurisdictions may allow for smoking, vaporizing, and ingesting of cannabis products within an indoor or outdoor cannabis consumption area unless licensed pursuant to the Medical Marijuana Act. Access to the cannabis consumption area is restricted to persons 21 years of age or older. So you can limit where it's consumed. And so that's basically it. That was one of the main reasons I voted against it, because I think it should be, there should be given a lot more local control, but it is what it is. You're going to be able to put some regulations on it, but I think there'll be possible challenges down the road for any local government but that's not to say that you shouldn't, regulate it. You guys should, I don't know what your feelings are on regulating it and what you want to do, but I'm certainly not implying that you shouldn't try and regulate it at all, because it does expressly state that you can place reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. It's just, the question is, what's a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction on a type of business that's brand new to our state? So it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
Zach?
Yes.
Could we get away with doing it like we do liquor licenses, where it's not by a school, not by a church?
It does say that.
Standing for alcohol, I think that would work.
What's that?
I would think that would work for cannabis, since it already works for alcohol.
Yeah, and it does say that you can restrict how close they are up to not more than 300 feet, or how close they are to a school. So yeah, I mean that's clearly. It looks to me like you could argue in a court that the legislature, when they passed this, was definitely looking at the Liquor Control Act. So that may, you maybe want to develop some sort of argument along those lines when you do go to regulate it. And then you get to the restrictions, or to what a local jurisdiction shall not do. That's part B of section 12. And you can't prevent transportation of cannabis products on public roads by a licensee that transports cannabis products in compliance with the Cannabis Regulation Act. And you cannot completely prohibit the operation of a licensee. So anybody who gets a license, they're going to be able to operate. So you can't shut anybody down,
But on that note, Zach,
Yep.
it seemed like I read in there that we can zone sections in there we can't stop the ones that are already established, but we can do a zoning where they're not permitted and stuff. Is that?
And I think what you may be referring to is that what the local jurisdiction may do, and it says adopt time, place, and manner rules that do not conflict with the act, including rules that reasonably limit density of licenses and operating times consistent with neighborhood uses. So consistent with whatever those zones are.
Okay.
Is my interpretation of that.
Okay.
Sounds like we're going to have to do some work on that. Now, in there, does it say who can be licensed to sell it? Can a business like you've seen the CBD just pop up everywhere? And then, we've got several of the medical ones that have opened up that are just, within, yards of each other. So is it going to be a regular business downtown can apply for a license like they would to sell cigars?
I don't think it's clear in the bill, but what the bill does is set up a new regulatory division within the regulation and licensing. So like the Alcohol Control Board or whatever that one's called, there'll now be a cannabis one, and they will establish the rules. So there's some guidelines in the bill, but I don't think it's
So
complete.
this is like in 2022?
Yes.
Okay.
So can the license be tied to an individual, and that individual has to have a background check? I mean, if they've got a criminal history to a certain point, depending upon, then you could prohibit a license?
Presumably that will be the case, yeah. And I can't remember, there are several different types of licenses that the bill does establish, including one, a micro business. So I would assume a micro business would be probably an individual doing whatever they do. There's also like the producers, manufacturers, retail guys, testing labs, and two or three, the micro business and two or three other licenses that are created under the act. It's just that the agency will have to actually sit down and adopt the rules on the application process. But
Mr. Mayor, there wouldn't be anything prohibiting one who was currently selling under the medicinal license to be also selling under the recreational license, would there? Could they?
No,
not have
there will be, businesses will be able to sell both recreation and medical. They'll have to reserve certain amount for their medical. In fact, that might be the case on anybody who's selling recreational will have to maintain a supply for medical. I can't remember exactly what the bill says, but that was the main concern of everybody, was making sure that there was enough stock.
You had mentioned 10%. I didn't.
I
As a
don't know if
reserve.
it's in there. I thought at one time that mentioned having them separate.
That's what I recall. One was-
Separate businesses,
Medicinal
separate
side,
locations?
Have a recreational side.
I don't know.
So you said that they'll be able to smoke it on those premises, indoors? Is that what I heard?
No, that's one of the things that, a local jurisdiction may allow for the smoking, vaporizing, and ingesting of cannabis products within an indoor or outdoor cannabis consumption area. And then it says if certain things are met.
Oh, so you could have a pot patio.
You can have a pot what?
Pot patio.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's saying.
As long as it doesn't violate the Clean Indoor Air Act.
Yeah, and we don't allow smoking,
Do it right off the bat.
and we don't allow smoking indoors, but I guess this is an exception to that rule, is that right?
No, they say consumption, and I think they're talking about the edibles and.
Oh,
oils
okay.
and things.
So gummies are in and smoking is out,
Oh,
so,
and pot-infused food is a big thing.
yeah, and gummies.
Pot-infused alcohol, so do they cover people that have an alcohol license being able to also sell marijuana products?
That's not covered in the bill.
It sounds like they didn't cover a lot. And this will be up to the Alcohol Pot Association?
The Cannabis Control Board, or whatever it's called.
Are we still going to get to approve the licenses like we do alcohol?
Pretty rubber stamping.
The thing with the alcohol is it's just a rubber stamp, yeah, unless it falls within the three certain categories, you can't deny it. So do they go to the state to apply and then come back to us and then we have to rubber stamp it, but it sounds like we have a little bit more.
Well, what we do on the rubber stamp is we verify the facts that the applicant put on there. Is it within so many feet? Does it comply with the district, so on?
Then you do the 30-day posting on the windows.
Correct.
So the public knows.
So it sounds like there's a whole bunch of clear, because we hadn't even talked about policing, methods for testing.
No, they jumped the gun.
And,
There's a lot of this stuff, and hopefully they will be talking to the other states that have already had it legalized. We've sent information in before, so.
Well, and they just refer to consumption. And, like we talked about, there's so many forms of consumption, whether it be edibles or the gummies or smoking or whatever it happens to be. So then that gets kind of crazy, because I know some places have, the rules is basically you can consume it, meaning smoking it, but it's before everything changed, but it has to be on your personal property, and that's it. You can't go to a park, you can't go out in public and do it. But then when you start talking about all these other methods of consuming it, then it gets kind of sticky there.
And we know how hard it is to enforce some of those things, because we took a trip to Colorado and to places that it was legal, and the people would just go out on the sidewalk and smoke it right there, even though they weren't supposed to. So that begs the question, who is supposed to enforce, like the alcohol gaming? You know, they show up once in a while, they do a little sting operation, so I guess they'll be in charge of making sure that the person they have receipts or invoices for everything they're selling, because I can see a point where with all the taxes that are going to be put on this, that it gets pretty expensive. So some of these people, I'm not saying all, but I can see a few of them that would supplement it with some of their homegrown or somebody else's homegrown.
Yeah, and again, one of the parts of the bill, it says provides that certain exchanges of cannabis when the person is not legally entitled to do so and in areas that are otherwise prohibited, it'll be a misdemeanor. So if I'm carrying, pot with me and you want a gummy or whatever I've got, and I give you some and you give me $10 or whatever, that was a misdemeanor.
Is that what a gummy costs, Zach?
The lobbyists give me gummies for free, so. Just kidding.
With or without cannabis.
We could go on all day with this because it's a big hole.
It is a hole, and I'll tell you guys that since we left, during the debate, that 2-day special session, the House Republicans, we use a chat app, whatever, WhatsApp, and I mean, all these questions were banging around between us too, and everybody's like, don't know.
Well, in Colorado, that's where I got a lot of my information. And I know Dave Anderson will argue with me on all this, but they had a big increase on their emergency services because a lot of this stuff is very potent. And people that came in from out of town were just excited at the idea that they could relive their youth. And next thing you know, they're having, I think, a heart attack or panic attacks. And so you call emergency services. So this excise tax will be figured in to the cost of these items, and then they'll add GRT on top of that. So is any of that going to be earmarked for emergency services of police or any of the stuff we have? So that would be up to a local, since we would get 33% of that?
The only part I'm aware of is that that excise tax, 33.33% is allocated to municipalities.
Is the state getting some on top of that?
Well, they'll get the other
66%.
Yeah.
That's 33% of the
33% of it.
of the tax.
But it'll be like GRT, here's your money, don't ask us how.
Yeah,
we
you're not going
yeah.
to prove it.
Yeah.
So in your deal, this gummy bear, so $10 before GRT, so roughly is $5 and then 100% tax on top of that? And we would get 33 1/3.
But
And having to police it and take care of them and all the other stuff.
You can't eat just one gummy.
But if I sell it to you under the table, it's only a misdemeanor. So the way they're gonna end up getting these people is like how they got all the mobsters, it's gonna be tax evasion. That's gonna be the big thing, but it's a misdemeanor. Oh, well. So the underground market is not going away.
So instead of these guys walking around carrying bread, they're going to say, get your gummies here, they're $10 in there, they're $5 over here.
Yeah. But none of this addresses the fact that it's still illegal federally.
That's
Yes.
correct.
So I really feel for our police department and how we're going to handle this, because it's a no-win.
Well, we're gonna have to work on our personnel policies too.
Exactly.
'Cause
Well, the personnel policies will stay the same. You cannot smoke it, but if you smoke it on the weekend and then you have a bad test on Monday,
Yeah,
You were gonna say something.
So it says,
about employers.
unless there, Section 34, employer protections exemptions. Unless there is an agreement between the employer and employee, nothing in the Cannabis Regulation Act shall, 1, restrict an employer's ability to prohibit or take an adverse employment action against an employee for impairment by or possession or use of intoxicating substances at work or during work hours. 2, require an employer to commit an act that would cause the employer to be non-compliant with or in violation of federal law or federal regulations, or that would result in the loss of federal contract or federal funding.
There you go.
But if, let's just say on Monday morning you did have a wreck and you come back and you had THC, that doesn't mean that you were impaired on Monday morning. It just means that possibly you,
Smoked weed on the weekend.
yes,
Or at some point in the 25 days prior to that.
yeah, I mean, it does, that, so that's.
It's one of the very few that are absorbed by lipids in the system. So you could have trace elements of positivity that have nothing to do with what happened with you T-boning somebody in an intersection.
Let me read this to you.
Back to that you can just say, in our personnel policy, you can't
Listen to
smoke
this.
weed and work for the village.
So back to this, nothing in the Cannabis Regulation Act shall, number 3 says, prevent or infringe upon the rights of an employer to adopt and implement a written zero tolerance policy regarding the use of cannabis products. A zero tolerance policy may permit the discipline or termination of an employee on the basis of a positive drug test that indicates any amount of delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol or delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol metabolite.
THC.
Yeah.
You know, our way around some of this may be, I'm not sure, but since it's against federal law.
Yep.
There's probably something in on federal grants where you're not supposed to be breaking federal law.
Most federal grants require you to have a drug-free policy.
Yeah,
So-
and we get federal money.
Yeah.
Well, I think Z-Trans is a good example of that. They have a zero policy, zero tolerance policy
So
for,
we can still adopt that, any employer can adopt that. And then if they do happen to have a drug test, and yeah, it can stay in your system for up to 25 days, but it depends upon your metabolism rate. When I was doing drug court, we'd have some kids that they had really fast metabolisms, and the urine test that we'd do sometimes would show it up to 3-4 days. Other kids would show up 4 months later.
well,
It just depends.
keep in mind too that it, metabolically, there are multi-use or multi-substance abuse users.
Yeah.
So if they, and I don't necessarily mean those that are illicit, but if you have someone who drinks a fair amount of alcohol and also ingests or smokes cannabis, there's one enzyme system in the liver that really tells the tale and about how quickly you void this out of the system or you don't. And it comes down to whether you're naive, meaning you haven't had much or ever done it, as opposed to someone who does it on a regular basis. And I agree. I'm not sure, though, that I think where law enforcement comes into a difficulty is it true and related or true and unrelated about an accident, harm to others? I mean, I just don't know how that falls out.
The impairment part will be hard to prove.
Yeah, if you pull somebody over, alcohol here, do a blood test, you have to go through the whole field sobriety test, but then here below. But this is like, no, you can't do that on the side of the road, so,
But if you have a zero.
either that or have them, here, hold your door open, we'll hold up a towel and you go ahead and pee in this little container and we'll test you. But yeah, it's ahead of its time, we're just pushing the technology so fast.
But if you think it's hard to hire people now, just.
Well, and to that point, I mean, Z-Trans is down to 3 drivers right now.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is just finding those that can pass the entry exams, one of which is all of the above.
Well, that's why Walmart stopped drug testing certain employees, because otherwise they'd have nobody,
Well, yeah.
so.
Well, thanks for clearing that all up, Zach. Appreciate you bringing that to us.
Oh, just one small question. So they do have to have a commercial zone to have their business, is that right? They can't have it on the front porch of their house.
That's the way that,
Unless it's a neighborhood
rather
business.
conducive with the area.
And-
Have retail selling residential.
Unless our tax assessor starts reclassifying this as a business. We just need to ask Will if that's what he's gonna do or not.
But
If you have an Airbnb.
It could be a home-based business with deliveries.
Now, that's true.
Vacant residential lot.
Joe, I think you're in business.
Business incubator at the working complex.
Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you.
Clear as smoke.
Yeah, and thank you for the, what's that, money that you put in there? It's in a little, fund that y'all get, your,
Slush fund.
This office fund.
Oh, the junior bill.
the, what?
The junior bill?
Yeah, your junior bill money. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you.
And, we know that you did a lot to,
Well,
of
Ron
our money
Cena
back.
has a bright future in lobbying. He's
that where
always
you're
on
going
top of
next?
it. He's always on the phone calling to remind me of capital outlay whenever we're in the
Good
thick
job,
of it.
Ron.
but our folks did a wonderful job in putting that together, Samantha and Ron and Tim and everyone, so we appreciate it. Okay, so manager, what else you got?
Mayor, the last thing I just want to report on, there was one item that was approved by the lodger's tax that wasn't on the agenda for this year, and it was $30,000 for a wayfinding signage, and it was approved to go to the Main Street program. That is within my limit of authority, so I'm going to proceed forward with that unless there's any objections to that. I will have Matt Ingram come and do a presentation to the council and, show you how he's going to approach that, but I will move that forward if it's all right.
Does everybody understand what we're talking about?
Yep.
But can you start ordering the signs and stuff? Because it'd be
Yes.
good to have that before Memorial Weekend.
Yes, we'll get that moving, and then we'll make sure that he does a presentation to you all,
Sounds good. Cool.
okay?
Anything else?
If not, that pretty much concludes our report.
More questions? Okay, we'll move on to, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, public hearings. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings, and in compliance with the Attorney General's office mandate regarding the Open Meetings Act during COVID-19, state of emergency, continuous emergency, the governing body will accept public input via email at clerk@ruidoso-nm.gov. Public comments must be submitted no later than 2 hours prior to the meeting and will be distributed. I think I had some weed at break. To governing body members for review. And we're talking about item number 1. Mr. Senna, do we have anybody call in, email in?
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, the clerk's office did not receive any public comment regarding the ordinance 2021-01 public hearing.
And I apologize to Mayor Pro Tem, that was a solace question that I overstepped my
You're
boundaries.
tired of me always asking that question.
Well,
so
it
I'm
finally,
okay with-
after
yeah.
years and years of you saying, I finally learned. My wife would say the same thing. After being repeatedly warned, he finally learned. Item number 1, ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance amending the Village of Ruidoso Municipal Code of Ordinances, Section 2-32A, an ordinance pertaining to the salary and compensation of the mayor and council for the Village of Ruidoso. And who is
Mr. Cornelius.
Cornelius Jean?
You didn't exactly tell me this. But
Oh, I didn't? Well,
No, but I thought when I brought it up to Tim, this wouldn't go into effect
right.
until after the next election. So you don't get a raise next week.
And only for those positions that come up for election in 2022.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, so if you're not up for election next,
Can't accept a raise during
It
your
doesn't go into
current term, you have to be.
You can't benefit from it now if you vote on it. So,
but
but what
I
it,
thought I was in a good position since I'm not doing it again.
and so will be tied, what's been put before us, it will be tied to the annual salary of Lincoln County Commissioners. The mayor's compensation would be 80% of an annual salary for Lincoln County Commissioners, and the compensation for individual council members shall be 40% of the annual salary of Lincoln County Commissioners.
So if they get a raise, you get a raise. We don't have, but it's, like I said in there, it's been this way since '93.
Yeah.
And I would hope that, I mean, it's not that much more, but maybe it would get some more interest,
Yep.
maybe some younger people even that
Or my question, who sets the county commission, wage?
Zoom,
They just vote on it, right, themselves?
Well, they have it now tied that whenever they give raises to the employees of the county, their
Right.
pay goes up as well. They have
Okay.
to take it, they can't deny it. At least that's what came up a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So Mayor, the way that we would manage this, at every election resolution, we would, go and determine what that rate is being paid by the commissioners, and then that would be the rate of the newly elected officials coming in.
What is the rate now?
Is it like 20,000 a year?
That's more than that.
22.
22?
Yeah, I think for some reason I'm thinking 22.
Well, and right now, everybody up here gets paid $500 a month.
So we get 6,000 a year.
You get 6,000 a year, and that's for all the meetings. We have more than one meeting a month. Every one of you are on different committee meetings, Zoom meetings that just started this time that go late into the evening, walkthrough on plants, looking at construction jobs, actually going to Dallas on your own time, but the village did pay to talk to EPA when we're working on the sewer line project. Going to Santa Fe, yeah, you get to ride in the back of a Suburban. And you get your meals paid for, but your time's not. Your cell phone calls that I'm on the phone with you guys all the time, different ones with different points.
Reading your 700-page,
My State of the Village
Well,
talk,
and your 6,000 salary is going to go up to what, 8,800.
yeah,
So you're not going
it's
to
not,
retire on it.
right. So I just think that it's right, the points that you made are, I think, on, that it might get some people that don't want to volunteer. And we've had people that are retired on para, stuff like that, wondering how it affects their retirement. So we're making sure that we can make that information public too.
so the one thing that in here, it says that that $500 a month rate was set in 1993. I looked up the minimum wage in New Mexico in 1993. It was $3.35. We're currently at $10.50, so it's tripled in that number of years. So it makes sense to, rather than keep coming back every once in a while and trying to increase it, to just tie it into something and then just have it follow. It just makes things much easier from that standpoint.
Well, and everybody up here has been very generous with their time that we've asked to, well, like Dr. Jackson, all the hours that you spent going over this COVID stuff, trying to interpret Dr. Scrace's evaluations, the gating criteria, working with our people on getting the CARES Act funding back. Joe's worked for years on, he's talking about the marijuana deal and different things that are going on the state issue. I know all of you have gone to Santa Fe, some have gone to other states on behalf of the village. So I think it's the least that we could do for the next folks that are coming in. So, anyway, so we didn't have anybody in the public that called. So if there's somebody on now, do we take it? Or do they have to put it in before? I want to make sure I'm clear on it.
Mayor Crawford, we can still open up the public hearing, but we already had it's 2 hours prior to the meeting. Would be any type of public input regarding this item?
Notification.
Yes.
That I want to speak in public.
Yes.
Opened it up through Zoom before.
Yes, but we
Well, I
can go
can
ahead.
open it
You
up
can
as
open it up, yes.
Okay, so Jeffrey, can you see if anybody puts their hand up?
I don't see anything. I see one fellow that I don't recognize, Alvin Dominguez. He's going to be on here for another issue. But you're looking at everybody that's on Zoom right now.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If there's anybody out there that wanted to comment, put your hand up or let us know so Jeff can acknowledge you. Nobody? Okay, we will close the public portion of this and go to the council for any final comments or thoughts.
If you get any phone calls, you can blame it on me.
I am going to blame it on you.
Oh, the only comment I have is this, Too bad Joe Gomez isn't here, because he could have finally gotten a raise.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Good old Joe. So would we, this one says an ordinance amending, so can we make a motion to amend that now?
That's the action item on here.
Okay. So if y'all two discussing it, if somebody wants to step out and make a motion, John, we would see if we can find a second.
Okay. I move that we approve ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance amending the Village of Ruidoso Municipal Code of Ordinances, Section 2-32A, an ordinance pertaining to the salary and compensation of the mayor and council of the Village of Ruidoso.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any final discussion? Being none, Mr. Center, roll call, please.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. I think that's well deserved for the next page. Move on to regular items. Item number 1, this is cool.
Yes.
Appointment of Frank Potter as municipal judge for the Village of Ruidoso, and he will take his seat on the bench on May 1st, 2021, after our current judge's retirement date at the end of April. So do we have any questions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have go ahead and make a motion.
I move that we accept the appointment of Frank Potter as municipal judge for the Village of Ruidoso as he takes the bench on May 1st, 2021.
Second.
No final discussion?
And I will say, Mr. Potter has served as the alternate judge before, so he's familiar with, he served as the alternate I believe under Judge Rankin at one point.
Yep.
So he's got the experience, and he's going to be a great person to fill those shoes until the next election.
I just hope he runs for.
We'll see.
I mean, I would encourage him, or ask him.
After listening to his interview, he does anything you say.
Yeah, that's what, we had him on the radio Monday, and Counselor Cornelius was amazed that he's held so many positions within the village, from the manager of the airport and working in the different departments and ordinances, and eventually village manager, and he's been a private businessman. But John was just amazed at how many times he could be talked into serving for.
Well, to get out of the hole, digging in the hole to go to the airport was an easy one.
Yeah. So roll call.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson. Thank you.
Okay, we've already done item number 2.
Yes.
So we'll go to item number 3, discussion and possible action on the.
You've done 3.
Oh, we already did that. We already did 4. We're at 5.
Man, we're moving fast.
Discussion on adoption of resolution 2021-19, establishing fees for building evaluation charts. Samantha.
Thank you, council members. This resolution here is to increase the building valuation fees by 6%. This is in step with International Code Council. I know there were questions last time as far as why are we doing this, and after I did some research and asking around, it's just because the ICC has increased their values due to inflation, and it's not something we're required to do, and it's just to help us get an estimated value of the construction costs by taking the gross area times the square feet to establish construction cost building valuations. So it's not mandatory that we do this, however, it is in step with the state and the ICC, and we are only going as far as 95% of what they're recommending.
Any questions?
So from what I read in here, it says that It doesn't necessarily have to go by the ICC valuation. It can go by the valuation that's determined by the owner or contractor when they sign the agreement for it.
Contract.
With a contractor. Well, it says owner or contractor.
No, but with the contract.
With a contract, right. So if their work happens to be less, as long as they're not adding any square footage, or if they're doing work that involves quality that's higher than the building official listed in valuation, then they can go by that as well.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's not just a flat number.
I can tell you from experience that
It never happens.
the rates aren't that high, but the valuations aren't that high.
Correct.
Or at least on what we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
And I did present this to the planning commission and
You have to start over now.
Because the meetings lasted so long.
have 5 batteries.
Jeff, we have some comments that have come up. Have you read them?
About?
I don't know, I can't read them.
Yes, sir. That's why I'm up here.
Oh, they said they couldn't hear Samantha. Thank you, whoever that is.
Now can you hear her?
Now,
Samantha, let's go present over there.
Sorry. I did present this to the Planning Commission and the Lincoln County Home Builders Association, and none of them had any negative comments towards it. They were understanding of the increase.
Well, no, it's the increased building cost these days.
Oh.
I imagine ICC is undervalued anyway.
Yeah, our board had plenty to say about the increase of the cost of materials.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions of Samantha? No? Can we get a motion?
I move that we adopt the resolution 2021-19 establishing fees for building evaluation charts.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any final discussion? Roll call, Mr. Senna.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
no. I just wanted to say no.
No.
Counselor Eby,
EB.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Joe, I thought
Thank
you were
you.
going to join me and say no too.
Thank you all.
No, keep it over there.
We're good on that? Okay, real quick, before we move to item number 7, I have another favor. I thank you for indulging me. I'd just like a quick report from Chief Thetford on the fire. We got more than one?
That's it.
Just come up here, you know, the one that came out.
There was one Sunday morning at Blue Hole.
That, I thought we had one over towards Cloudcroft, or
I haven't heard the one in Cloudcroft.
what was the one we were talking about?
The Little Creek,
Little Creek, yes.
that was, Ranches on Terra,
Okay.
3.5 acres. They're sewing it up with the Forest Service today. It's not official, but it sounded like somebody was working on a wellhead and cutting a pipe with some torches, and it got away and ran up the hill.
Okay, so it's Little Creek.
Little Creek.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Ranches
so
on
it's
Terra.
well under control.
And the smoke that you see over towards the Baca Campground is prescribed,
Controlled.
and they're still on it as of today. But they did stop ignitions yesterday during the other grass fire, but then they resumed this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, folks. I just know I had some people asking about the fire. I just didn't know where it was at. Number 6, discussion and possible action on acceptance of US Highway 70, NM Highway 48 intersection feasibility study. Is this you, Mr. Santa?
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, this is on the funding that the village did receive regarding, at the very beginning, it was looking into different, it was a roundabout project is what we were anticipating. And we worked with Bohannon Houston. They were the professional engineering firm that was contracted to do the study. We did change that to a feasibility and location study as on the documentation on the final plan, it has a high T concept is what Bohannon Houston is recommending. I do have Alvin Dominguez with Bohannon Houston on, and I wanted to get any information he had regarding this. And I'm not sure if Bert Thomas is on, but I do see Alvin Dominguez.
Thank you, Ron. Councilors, this is Alvin Dominguez, Bohannon, Houston. Chairman, yes, as Ron had mentioned, we've been studying this feasibility study for about a year now. We actually got the contract notice to proceed in March of 2020 through the Transportation Infrastructure Funds for the New Mexico Department of Transportation. Throughout the project, as Ron had mentioned, we did study the intersection of US 70, New Mexico 48 for different options, not only in today's time frame of the traffic, but also the 20-year horizon. That's always how these studies go. We look at it 20 years, we project it out 20 years, what the traffic would do in 20 years. We did see that the intersection would fail in 20 years, so we did multiple options, as Ron had mentioned, roundabout feasibility, and also what we call a high T. And we presented that to the council. I believe we've been on twice, and we did have a public meeting also a few months ago to present that to the public. And we'd recommend in the future a high T intersection would work at the 20-year horizon. We also were tasked to look at the corridor between the intersection up to Mescalero Trails, and we did look at numerous options on that. And we did recommend the 4-lane with the bicycle 4-lane facility with controlled access. Also bike lane in both directions, also from Mescalero Trail up to the intersection. In a nutshell, that's what the feasibility study did, is look at different options. It did not include any preliminary design. It did include some conceptual designs that are also included in the feasibility study, with some preliminary estimates also broken down within the feasibility study. I believe, and Ron can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the contract itself between the DOT and the village expires now at the end of June. We're doing some other studies with the same money that the DOT gave them, and I know all of theirs is the expiration date is June 30th also on those two. So we're trying to wrap up these feasibility studies. We think we've done a good job to give different options to the village. One of the things I've spoken to Ron about is assisting the village as much as we can to look for some funding for design and for construction in the future. And there's some recommendations in the document about how to proceed with that, working with the District 2 office through the New Mexico Department of Transportation, and also through SERPO, the Southeast Regional Planning Organization, to get these projects on their tip, the Transportation Infrastructure Plan, to try to get these funded in the future. So with that, I stand for any questions that the council may have.
I don't have any.
Okay, I don't think anybody has any questions, but I do reading through your proposal, the questions that were asked of some of the businesses over there about accessibility into their businesses. It looks like you've addressed some of those things and have preliminary estimates, I guess, on, what monies will be needed. So is there any other questions? Also, Counselor, just to let you know, we also work with the Lincoln County Medical Center, the new complex. They did send me the plans for their new driveway, so we did incorporate that location into the feasibility study. So we appreciate them sharing that construction plans with us, so we can make sure and include that portion of it in there. Okay, and again, to folks listening, this is the area that is by the hospital, McDonald's, the access coming off of Gavilan Canyon, the Sonic, the Veterinarian Center, all of those things there, and of course the other businesses on the other side of the current Y. So, And we did have public meetings over this. The money was funded through a grant. And so that's all there is. And so if you guys somebody wants to forward a motion,
Mayor, I'll move for the acceptance of the US Highway 70, New Mexico Highway 48 intersection feasibility study.
Second.
okay, I heard a second. Do you know who it was, Ron? Okay.
I heard Joe.
No final discussion? Oh, you're gonna have to speak up, bro.
I heard Joe, but it was like at the same time.
Let the doctor have it.
Okay.
He's the one that brought up about the hospital entrance and exit area and that they need to consider that, so.
Well, he already kicked it back to you, so. Roll call, please, sir.
Counselor Salas.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Counselor Letterman.
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Number 7, discussion and possible action on a utility rate analysis, either before or after utility master plan updates. Mr. Boyda?
Mayor Crawford, councilors, so Tim asked us to present this question to the governing body so we can get guidance. So Judy and I worked together and put together this kind of PowerPoint to update you on the issue, and then we'll get your guys' opinion. So what is a rate analysis? A rate analysis is an assessment of existing rates for adequacy to fund future operations and maintenance expenses, any type of debt services, or self-funded capital improvements. There. Okay. And then it also includes an evaluation of debt capacity and current projected revenues and to finance future capital projects. And then it determines an equitable rate to recover costs from customers, will recommend reserves and debt service coverage, and assess how this proposed rate structures impact customers. And so, we had intended to do a rate study for the enterprise funds, but at least for the American Waterworks Association, they recommend that analysis is performed once every 5 years. And so when we look at our last rate analysis for these 4 enterprise funds, we're due for a rate analysis. So our last water update was, since it had 13 meetings, and I think a lot of you guys were on those public hearings, it spanned over a 2-year period in 2013 and 14. And then the sewer and wastewater rates were adjusted together with the Red Oak study that was done as a component of the wastewater treatment plant bonding issue to build a new facility. And then we were not able to find the last time that there was actually a outside firm that analyzed the solid waste fees.
Jeff Kaplan.
So, capital improvement plans. So, sorry, I broke the rules of PowerPoints and I gave a bunch of words on here and I'm basically reading them off. But capital improvement is the addition of a permanent structural change or restoration of some aspect of property that will enhance the property's overall value, along its useful or adapt it to new uses. And so a CIP, a capital improvement plan, is a short-range plan, 4 to 10 years, that identifies capital projects, equipment purchases, and provides a planning schedule that identifies options for financing and formulating a well-planned, prioritized capital improvement program instills confidence in your residents by demonstrating your commitment to maintain the infrastructure that supports your community. And so, for these enterprise funds, one of the better ways to develop a CIP is to conduct a master plan. And so, typically, a master plan can be variable, but things that we would look at are demand and supply analysis. So has the demographics of your community changed, or is there growth potential in a certain area that you need to make sure that your facilities can handle this expected growth or decrease in population? Analyzes the current systems, optimizes their facilities, deals with any type of environmental issues or treatment, looks at asset management sustainability, so that replacement program for failing devices, developing that CIP, looking at staffing levels and qualifications, and looking at village ordinances and possibly recommending updates. And so when we look at the status of our master planning documents for these 4 enterprise funds, the water, we had a water development plan, which is a little bit different than a water master plan in 2016. And the last real full-blown put together master plan was in 98. Our sewer plan was approved in 2017. So it's still relevant, but it's getting to that point where you want to at least do a minor update to it. For our wastewater plan, we don't have a current master plan at all, and we weren't able to find any type of solid waste master planning documents. And so the question that we're posing to you is, so in this current fiscal year, we put aside money to do a rate study analysis, and we were going to analyze these 4 enterprise funds together and adjust the rates accordingly. But in the absence of these master plans, we really don't have a capital improvement plan in place that really shows us what is our next 10-year goal for capital investment. And so there's pros and cons to us performing a rate study before the master plan or waiting for a master plan and then doing a rate analysis. And it's really up to you guys on which direction you want us to go. But if we were to perform the rate analysis now before the master plan, some of the pros are, we're well overdue for an analysis. We should try to strive for doing one every 5 years. And, for wastewater especially, it's 11 years since the last adjustment. We also have this budgeted this year, and so we can start right away. And then pending the results, if the results came back that we could reduce some of our utility fees, it would provide relief to customers within likely a year. So some of the cons of doing a rate analysis first is we don't understand all present and future system needs. Does the rate analysis incorporate changes in demographics recently? So a lot of times if they're looking at historic data, it doesn't necessarily represent the trend that we're going in. So with the increase in kind of year-round tourism, and then the short rental impacts, does that change how our level of service in the utilities address those more continuous uses? And then we would have to use an assumption for establishing an annual CIP cost. So we could do a rate analysis and say, okay, we want to make sure that, $2 million per year is budgeted to a CIP program, and then you can do your rate study around that. But if we wait for a master plan before the rate analysis, we would have better information to address demographic changes. And then we would have that established CIP. We know what would be required for our reserves and capital outlay and debt service. And then this is the thing that's the most attractive to me personally, is it would set us up in a 5-year rotation where we're doing a master plan and then a rate study, and then a master plan update, and then a rate study. So we'll always have that updated CIP before we do a rate analysis. The con is it would wait for 1 to 2 years before we would have utility rate adjustments. And so like I said, if it came back that we were to reduce the utility fees, there would be a longer period before our customers could get some economic relief. But that's just if the rate study comes back and says that we should reduce rates.
Well, the other side of that is if we wait 1 to 2 years and it comes back and says we're underfunding, then it's going to be an even bigger increase to the customers 2 years from now.
Yes, sir. So, like I said, this is really a policy decision, and we're looking for your advice. But based on staff that met and discussed this, our recommendation is that if we wanted to move forward with the solid waste rate study analysis without a master planning document, that may be a viable solution. But we're encouraging to wait for the water and wastewater master plans to be completed before doing the rate analysis. We should be at 10.
Well, you didn't have that discussion, how can you set staff's recommendation? You didn't have that discussion.
We had that discussion.
You didn't have the discussion, make the recommendation, we said that's a policy decision.
Okay, well, I apologize, Tim.
So I understand what he's saying, what you said, that it wasn't discussed with the manager, is that what you're saying, and that?
When they brought it to me, I'm saying it's not a staff decision, because there's several departments involved with that, but the recommendation, it's a policy decision.
Correct.
And I've heard from time and time again that the council has talked about the rate studies, that you promise that you're gonna try to roll back. And, so I've always said that that's a policy decision, that the council needs to look at the pros and cons.
Well, I totally agree with it. And as someone that sat on the joint use board for some years with several of them, John, and I know Councilor Jackson has been there, and whatever, we always have tried to figure out a way to reduce the fee that we apply for the wastewater treatment plant, but because of EPA regulations and all the different things that we've done, the unexpected wear and tear on the filtration system and the acidizing that we have to do to clean off the fats, oil, and grease caused us to implement a FOG program, fats, oil, and greases. So we went and implemented the grease trap program, and so we've been monitoring that closely, and Isaac does a wonderful job down there, but he's always under the gun to meet these analysis, just like what we talked about with our freshwater, with the total organic carbons that we had. He has the same issue down there with total dissolved oxygen and things like that. So it's constant. So we've never been able to really rationalize how we're going to do that. We always want to do that, but we're always keeping it funded so we don't have to go back and ask for more money. But just from the things that have been presented, we've had a lot of success with our master plans, because we've seen many times that we've started something, grindstone or whatever, and then we thought should have done this and should have done that. I like the idea of doing the master plan first.
Yep.
And I would like some discussion on that, and some discussion on how do you want to do the solid waste? If it's something that we want to move forward with, or do you think we should encompass that in that master plan?
I would say keep it all together. If we do, just my opinion on if we did implement a rate study for the solid waste, and we implement that before the water, wastewater, and everything else is implemented, I'd rather just sell it as one whole package, that this is the whole increase on what the utilities we charge. And that's just my opinion on there. Just wait till the master plan's done on all the utilities, or enterprise funds, as I should say.
Mayor, one of the options that I saw that the evaluation didn't bring up is there's nothing that stops you from proceeding forward. You basically have the same disciplines that would respond to this type of an RFP if you're to have a joint RFP go out where you would incorporate your master plans and then rolling into a rate study. A lot of those assumptions can be starting to work on instead of waiting. So you get your rate study going right away, and as you continually work on your master planning, that's worked on as well.
So concurrently,
Yes.
you might want to pull that microphone over there so people can.
That's a third option. You don't have to you can do both at the same time, or you can put out an RFP where you're conducting both studies at the same time. And then once your master plan information is available, then that would dictate, what would go into your capital improvements. And one of the things that I didn't see in the presentation, normally you have your operation, maintenance, repair, and replacement. So, those are the major components that go into your rate study and your analysis. So.
But how would you get your rates? I'm gonna use solid waste. How would you get your rates if you don't know how many dumpsters you're gonna have to replace or how many trucks you're replacing and everything there until the master plan is done?
You would make an assumption, or, you start the rate study.
So yeah, that's
Both of
my
them
problem.
both of them
I don't
can,
like making assumptions. and
both of
then
them
present
can go forward at the same time, and you would start them. When you look at a rate study, Eric, you said it took 2 to 3 years before.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what it's gonna take. So if you start with the whole analysis of the rate study at the same time you're working on your master plans, once you get that capital improvement built out, then you incorporate that into that element of the rate study.
Okay.
So if we did them congruently, would it address the demographic changes? Because that's one thing I see is a lot
Yes.
of people are staying up here longer.
Yeah. And that's one of the big parts that there's been a change on is, before, back in 2014, I think one of the what was the document references?
2013 to 14.
Oh, that was the water rate study, and it was done by Hewitt Speakers.
Yeah, so, back then, the short-term rental uses, and that's what Eric's talking about, those 1,000 units or whatever it was, say, back in 2013, say there was only 200. If they're only being occupied, a shorter amount of time, you didn't have all that water consumption where you have that happening now. So when they evaluated that, they evaluated on that level of service, they weren't taking that wear and tear into consideration on the system. So, there may be a bigger need for investment in the system with that type of a demand.
Because I know that's when we discovered it was a simple produced water to revenue water ratio. And then what was in the gap was all the 60 to 70% leakage that we were having. And that's where we found out we were charging, I don't remember, is it $6 per thousand, and we're now charging $8. But back then we were selling it for $2 per thousand less than what it cost us to make it back then. So hopefully, if we could do these congruently, then we would maybe see the fruits of our labor from the GO bonds, with the stopping some of the leakage, and just see if we've made some progress on that percentage of leakage of produced water.
That helped. The mayor you were there at the JEB meeting. Isaac was saying his volume was up. He wasn't sure exactly why. And I suggested it may be because sewer lines are fixed.
That's a good point.
But the nightly rentals will make it too, but that's been over time. I think you'll have a hard time getting a good number from Isaac right now, because all his chemical ratios, all that's going to change. We've already hooked up somewhat over 200. The Downs has hooked up about 100 new people, and we're still on that program of hooking people up. And at some point, it needs to be figured in there, we may have to open that third basin. That's going to be an expensive proposition.
Mayor Crawford, Councilor Canales, so the wastewater master plan would do a detailed analysis. So, realistically, we were still probably 4 months out if we flew an RFP right now to having somebody with a task order start that analysis. So we'll be basically done with the restoration component of the project. So we can start looking at the changes of concentration of effluent that are coming into the plant and have an engineering firm help us recognize what type of changes might have to occur with this change concentration of effluent.
That'd be fine in the master plan. I was just worried about the rate analysis until they figure out what's going on.
Mayor, one of the things, and if you look at it, look how long the rate study has happened.
Yep.
You keep kicking that can down the road and you don't get it done. I'd like to see that we start moving forward on those things and make a commitment that we're gonna get it done. And you do that by putting an RFP with everything in there, and then get the consultants to propose on how they're gonna move forward.
So are y'all a bunch of can kickers?
So,
Mayor, I hate to say it like that, but I've just heard this council say over and over that they want to revisit those rates and get it done.
Well, we honestly do.
yeah, well, and I can see tying water and sewer together, because the two products are very similar. Quality is different, but, they fall together. I don't agree with doing them all at the same time, though, because again, if we find out solid waste, who knows how long if we've ever done a rate study. Kaplan was one that was always, he's not getting enough money. We're taking EGRT and we're focusing that out in some other areas. And so solid waste, I think, is one that needs to be done rather soon. If we take all three and tie them all together, and we find out that, again, everything's an assumption. I know, Rifle, you said you don't like assumptions, but we have to assume how many people are going to be coming to town in 5 years and 10 years. How often are they going to be flushing the toilets? We've got the reduced flow because of the work that's taking place on the sewer lines, which is going to increase the concentration of the effluents that are coming. But if we find out that we're undercharging, now we're going to hit our residents with one big boom of all three of them at one time. And by spreading them out, it gives a little bit of a cushion for the people when they start to get their utility bills. It might be, okay, this year, we're going to have to raise our solid waste and our recycling fees a little bit, and then the next year, then we're going to bring in our water and sewer. I think that solid waste, we probably have a pretty good handle on the replacement cycle of our vehicles, replacement cycle of our dumpsters and so forth. Water and sewer, that's one where we definitely need to study. So I myself would say move forward on the solid waste portion of it, and then let's get the master plan in place before we do the water and sewer.
I'd like to invite Jerry Parsons to the microphone, please. We'll just go to the horse's mouth, and can you tell us if you're seeing an increase? I know that we've already talked about the yard waste, that we had a big, deluge of that with everybody being home through COVID. But in general, can you speak to this?
The brush.
Attaboy.
Oh, there it is. The brush is not really, they're still taking about the same loads to the landfill with the semis, but the brush is what's gone real bad.
Okay, so the trash and stuff like that is pretty much the same?
Yeah, it's not.
What about dumpster
Our
replacement?
loads to the landfill is how we can tell that.
Now, it did seem to me that when COVID hit, our recyclables like cardboard went up tremendously because everybody was ordering things to be shipped in, and now they've got all those boxes that they had to do. Like we had the dumpster, we talked to Green Tree, the dumpster over at Horton, we're now getting that dumped twice a week instead of once a week like it used to be, just because the volume has increased so much. But trash that's going to the landfill, you say is about steady?
Yeah, that's, two guys making loads Monday through Thursday, and Thursday and Friday really slack off down to one, which actually back in the day, we used to make 3.
Yeah.
So.
Go figure.
There was times we used to make 3 loads, have to have 3 trucks go down there instead of 2.
So you're just talking yourself out of more money here.
Okay.
We need a brush, more for the brush.
Yeah, and I talked to Dick about this. I was surprised that I would have thought that volume would have gone down as we're going back through town, but it isn't.
It's increasing.
Well, I will tell you firsthand that the licensed insured tree trimmers are so busy right now. I've been trying to get one to go out to Capitan, to my property there. Nobody will even go to Capitan. because they're so busy in town with all the thinning that's going on. So it's amazing. You would think after we thin it, it would be less volume coming out, but it.
Well, if you're friendly to your firemen, you'd probably get Buddy out there. Isn't that right, Chief?
Of course, Dick marks more trees than we started out
Dick
marking.
needs to slow down.
Well, there are times I look at things and go, really? You didn't take out more? So.
They need to learn how to plant roads too.
Well, thanks, Jerry. I appreciate
We
you.
need full drive grapple trucks to go on Dick's roads. You bet.
Okay, thank you. And it's all about fire danger, what he's talking about with the brush and what Dick's doing. And if anybody has Netflix, they have a new show out talking about fire danger in California and what's going on. And it's very reminiscent of what happened in the Little Bear fire. So you might watch it and it will reaffirm our position.
They just need to get people out there and rake the forest for the pine needles.
And they're doing a prison program.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, they're big on prisoners and
Now,
firefighters.
maybe we need to be big on them. Okay, Mr. Boyd, go ahead.
So, I guess it kind of, it sounds like, based on what Tim was discussing, that if you guys would like to move forward and advertise a rate study combined with a master plan and have those people partner together and do these concurrently, is that the direction?
That's the third option.
Yeah, Mayor, and I'm not suggesting that that's, my recommendation. I'm just suggesting that.
Yeah, you're
I
posing
think-
options.
I think this is an issue that the council needs to sit down, talk about it, and see how y'all want to approach it. There is different options, different approaches, so.
Personally, the rate analysis before the master plan, I don't like that one as much as I do the master plan before the rate analysis. But if it could be, because of the length of time that it takes to pull one of these off, and, when's the best time to stop losing money or making money is as soon as you can, so.
Yesterday.
Would the
Yep.
same company do the master plan and the rate analysis?
Mayor Crawford, Councilor Canegas, no, it's unlikely, but we have partnering firms all the time that present proposals together. So we could just phrase the scope of work to have somebody have certain qualifications for the master plan and then have somebody with other qualifications to partner for the financial.
And they would be able to dovetail information?
I mean, they're so similar in nature, it does make sense to do them concurrently as long as you can get those two firms to partner with each other. And I'm sure that there's other instances of municipalities doing a similar.
Mayor, Council, what I've seen before is, when you look at all these, there's sometimes some firms may have more expertise in solid waste than what they do in water, or may have more expertise. So it's more than likely going to be a multidisciplinary team where you bring in your financial consultants working with a couple of different engineering firms to get it all done, if you would want to run it concurrently.
And we've saved enough money to pull this off?
So Mayor Crawford, we have put aside $200,000 for a rate analysis from the various departments for this year. And then in the next fiscal year, I'm putting in a request for the master planning document. And so if we started advertising the RFP for this, once we get the next year's budget funding, we'd be able to hit the ground running on July with that combined task order.
Okay, Joe, do you have any comments?
So that rate analysis, that was for the water and the sewer, what you put aside?
Yes, I wasn't sure exactly the amount that was put aside for solid waste.
Okay, now, I've got a comment to make on this here. As far as the master plan and the rate analysis, it seems to me that during the timeline that's been shown here, we're looking at 1 to 2 years for a master plan to even be developed. And then start your rate analysis. So if you do if you have wastewater first, and then your rate analysis, and then jump into freshwater or your water development master plan, and so on, then you'd be looking at 4 years down the road for that, before you're even affecting pro or con whether the rates go up or down. So I would tend to be in agreement with that. We do run them congruently, and that we just go ahead and, if it is the same firm and they're doing the master plan, they're working with the master plan and the rate analysis, then they can always combine the information as they gather it there. But like say, there are assumptions, and I believe that we just got to move forward with it and save time in the end, because we'd probably all be dead before some of this stuff gets done if we try to stretch it out. And like Tim said, with those solid waste, that could go out to another firm, could go out to another entity that would deal with that, and then have one person hopefully be able to deal with the water on both ends as far as the water and the sewer. So that would be how I feel, moving forward in that direction.
Did everybody get that?
Yeah, and solid waste, we know the tipping fees go up automatically every year.
Right.
So, I mean,
But I think basically what most of this is really looking at the system and seeing, because that's what really struck out to me, was not knowing what is the demand on your system and what are your future needs going to be. And so with your master plan, that sheds light on what the future holds and what your, let's just say your infrastructure needs and so on are going to be in the coming years. Is that correct? So that, of course, would shed light on what your rate analysis.
Okay. Councilor Letterman?
I think it'd be best to do the congruent.
Okay. Councilor Salas?
Yeah, I'm still looking at the staff recommendations of starting with the solid waste rate analysis and then wait for the water and master plan, and I like that idea.
Okay, so your proposal is go ahead and start on the solid waste. Go ahead and start with the rate analysis and then do the master plan?
Yes.
Councilor Cornelius?
I'd like to see the rate analysis not wait 2 years, but it seems to me like the master plan needs to have a little bit of a jump on the particular. I don't know if we can get the same company to do them, but they need to analyze, I think, the master plan, what we're needing to do so we know what to charge on capital improvements and.
So you're with option 2?
Well, kind of congruently, but with a head start on the master plan.
And the way Mr. Boyd was talking, we wouldn't be able to do the master plan until fiscal year, until July 1st, which in the scheme of things probably would be right there in lockstep.
Yes, sir, Mayor Crawford. So we're putting in the funding request for water and sewer master plan for next fiscal year. So like I said, when we put on an RFP, if we did it for doing the rate study and the master plan with the same partnering firms, we probably would have a task order on the July or August council meeting.
Okay. Councilor Coughlin?
I concur with Councilor Salas.
Okay. Councilor Jackson?
There was a slide that you had up that caught my eye. It almost was like it came from Judy, but it made a lot of sense to me. When you do the rate analysis, which I'm assuming it did, you were looking at required reserves. I'm looking at SURF, your capital outlay, which is goods, services, and equipment, and your debt service, which may be bonding. And it was just one slide with 3 bullets on it, and I think you had it divided under whether you would do the master planning first or the rate analysis first. What I'm trying to do, long story short, is get my arms around which gives you the quickest bang for your buck to get there? I'm concerned that if you use a master planning as your focus, that by the time that catches up to you, the rate analysis would be obsolete. So I can't see how that would run concurrently. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I want to know when you look at this, no matter what moniker you put on this, is the good services, capital outlay, debt service, much of what I think Manager Dodge was hitting on is you can do those analyses as you go along. You're going to be looking in the rearview mirror anyway. Do that, try to get your arms around that. Then when you know what you're really looking at, dollars and cents wise, then mold your master plan in, to complement it. But doing it the other way, I just don't see them working concurrently very well at all. That's my 2 cents.
So what was your option?
I wasn't so concerned about solid waste as I was looking at the revenues that are generated from these other two. And I'm more involved with really the wastewater treatment plant, and the hands-on there is very concerning to me. And I think you're right. I don't think Isaac can make a real estimate on what his needs are going to be because the costs of providing that service keep going up. And that plant is how old now?
10, 11, 12 years old.
And we're already looking at major changes in terms of pumps and other things that are not low-cost items. So I'm in favor, I don't want to give it a number, but I'm more concerned in focusing on the rate analysis of those two entities, the water treatment plant as well as regional wastewater treatment plant and water production. Because I think that's where the bulk of where we're going to be faced spending money is going to be. I looked at that graph with respect. I looked at that graph of how the amount of tonnage and the rest that go out with the solid waste, and it's pretty much linear. I mean, I don't know how you would predict it to be different. And as we've gotten expert testimony already about where the real focus needs to be is the brush, not just the solid waste that comes from the dumpsters. So that's what I'm saying is I think I would rather see a rate analysis based on water production and wastewater treatment first, then molding a master plan around what we find there. Because I'm not clear what we're going to find. I don't know if our rates are too high or too low. And I'm not sure that waiting 2 years out is going to help us with that. I think the complexities and changes.
Maybe we need to define what do we expect out of a master plan? What does that going to tell us? So Mr. Boyda, on this master plan that is, because we go to master, strategic, and then what's the last one, Tim? Strategic, tactical. So we go through all these different ways to get to the action rubber on the road item. So out of a master plan, what would we expect to get out of this master plan? What information?
So the master plan is going to give you projections of demand changes. So looking at population projections, changes in development, infill expectations, along with changes in industry use. So like is there a trend towards water conservation per se, or gray water use? And then typically would have an evaluation of your existing facilities and system and look at strategic ways to optimize those systems. So whether it's an operational change or it's a capital investment where we make an investment that has a return or increases our resiliency for a system, and then looks at the 10-year outlook of what might be expect in changing rules, laws, and regulations, because we want to make sure that we're preparing for any type of potential environmental change that's coming down on us so that we're prepared. And then, developing that CIP based off of all these recommended changes. So how, for instance, like a wastewater master facilities plan, or the wastewater plant might analyze, so Isaac's been talking about having a fine screen system added that's going to help protect the filters and increase the longevity of the filters. but that might be a $2 million project. And so how does that fit into the schedule of also that, we have aging pumps and other equipment that are just reaching their end of life, and trying to figure out how can we stagger these improvements so it's not just, here's $10 million of work and then we don't do anything for a couple of years. We're trying to partition that out so that we can best fund that based off of either our revenues or taking out bonds or, taking on debt. And so scheduling that improvement out.
Mayor, I have a suggestion, just for consideration, is you might want to issue, I guess, 3 to 4 different RFPs and, get a rate study RFP going. And the RFP process it's a very minimal cost to, issue an RFP, but you would have the consultants come in and say, these are different approaches for you to consider. And they may, even when you issue an RFP for a rate analysis, a financial consultant may come in and say, we may be able to analyze your solid waste first and make a recommendation on that. But before we proceed forward with this rate analysis, then we need to make sure that this master planning is done. So, different firms may have different approaches. The RFP is going to educate you more, and it doesn't really take away or commit you to anything.
That may make sense, because either way we do it, if we need to raise rates, we need to raise rates now, not in 2 years. But I'm not sure we know what we're doing on wastewater yet. Solid waste, I think, may be the easiest one to come close to. I hate to waste 2 to 4 years for needed increases.
Well,
And
Judy.
I don't think we're giving money back. is my
Yeah,
opinion
that's
on
a
waste.
wish. I don't know if we're ever going to
I
get
don't
there.
think it's getting there.
So Judy, what enterprise fund are we subsidizing?
Mayor, councilors, currently, the environmental gross receipts tax is divided among 50% going to solid waste, and then 25% is going to the wastewater treatment plant, and then the other 25% is going to the supplemental gross receipts tax. Now, the only utilities that has actual debt that is serviced by their own service charges is the wastewater treatment plant. The water and sewer utility fund debt is subsidized by a GEO bond and also the supplemental gross receipts tax.
The SGRT.
SGRT, you are correct. The only thing in doing some research about SGRT is when the tax was originally enacted, it was only enacted for the duration of the debt that is issued by the gross receipts tax. Currently, that debt is scheduled to roll off in 2031. I do have a question into Chris Muirhead, who is our bond counsel, who is actually doing research on that tax and that part of the statute to see if we can refinance the debt associated with the SGRT in order to extend it out in order to keep the tax enacted. However, he hasn't gotten back to me. So right now, debt currently isn't a figure in the service charge calculation because it's being serviced by outside revenue sources. So in a rate analysis, that might be an impact that might affect the rates that it will be charged going forward.
And that SGRT is 1% that's on our GRT, right?
Yes, sir.
We also
Judy.
have the bond that they pass every year for the water repair.
Yes,
So
those are the GEO bonds.
we're not covering that in our rates. We're covering it with SGRT and with the bond money.
You're actually covering it with property taxes.
What I was gonna ask you, Judy, it seemed like when I was reading over the audit report that water was subsidizing sewer.
Yes, currently, right now, water is currently subsidizing sewer.
That,
I haven't looked at it, but I can research that and get back to you. I believe prior to the study in 2014, I believe it was the other way around, and that's why there was such a dramatic increase on the water side.
right.
Okay, does anybody have any words of wisdom before I show you what a fool I am?
So the last thing that Tim said, and don't ask me to repeat it, but basically it's like go out, get somebody to get started and see what these experts say we need to do. I'm going with that.
Okay, so instead of having a discussion of possible action on utility rates before or after the master plan, we want to change this to where we want to go out for an RFP for professionals in the field to give us a
Pick their brain.
direction, huh?
Rate analysis and master planning. And it may result in multiple awards.
Okay.
And then they would come in and they'd advise us what's the, best way to move forward.
Would one guy do all four of them, or
Normally
is there a solid waste specialist and a?
Yes. It may result in multiple awards. You may have one engineering firm that has more expertise in solid waste, or you may have somebody that comes in with all those disciplines. Normally, the financial analysis is farmed out, or, they bring somebody else in to conduct that part. Like Red Oak, or I don't even know who the current,
Not Red Oak. We
Yeah.
don't want Red Oak here.
yeah, but I'm saying that Red Oak's a firm that's all they do is rate analysis. And that other one that was up
Good
there.
dollars.
Was it engineering?
Yeah.
And Councilor Salas, from my understanding, Red Oaks was bought out and kind of disassembled by Wilson and Company.
Yeah, and that George guy that worked with y'all before, I think he's gone. He's since retired. Was that George?
Yeah.
Was it a George guy? Yeah.
Okay, so that was a long way to get around our elbow to get to the thumb, but I think that we have a direction now, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can we put together pardon?
Do we have to have a motion?
Yes.
Oh, I might have one.
Okay. I'm surprised.
I saw him writing, so I said, Gary's got it.
For consideration and discussion, I move to approve requests for proposals to focus on areas of rate analysis and master plan investigation focused on solid waste, water production, and wastewater treatment.
Second.
Did that get them all?
Did you get
Sewer?
sewer in there and wastewater?
Well, I thought that would be in, I can add
Well,
that.
sewer and water is different than wastewater treatment plant.
Sewer, then add, all right.
Sorry,
No,
you were doing so well.
I was halfway there. So I'll rescind that motion with this. I move to approve requests for proposals to focus on areas of rate analysis and master plan investigation focused on solid waste, water production, sewer, and wastewater treatment.
Second.
Okay, any other final discussion? You like it? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Senna. Did we lose our internet? Jeffrey? Okay,
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
it just came back on the top one.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I know that it's a lot of work, and that's just the very,
Probably have it recorded.
Thank you, Mayor Crawford. That was a really good discussion. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for bringing it to us. I think we'll get there. So item number 8, discussion and possible action on shared use agreement with the Ruidoso Municipal Schools for parking facilities at the Horton Complex. And this is Mr. Boyd again.
Mayor Crawford, councilors, so this is the shared use agreement for the conjoined parking lot that's between the administrative building and the old school building. And we've attached the Exhibit A showing the hatched area where the conjoined parking lot shared space would be. And so I know that Councilor Coughlin had questions about why it didn't include all the other parking in the facility, and that parking area is already has a parking easement for the school district on the quitclaim deed and the replat. And so this is for us to show that the plan maintenance of, we can use this conjoined parking lot together, and then the school manages their portion, we manage our portion, but we can freely park in any of those areas.
Sounds good. And this is being presented to the school board today, I believe.
I believe it's a closed session item.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we did provide it to them several weeks ago for review.
That's what I thought, that they had it. Are there any questions about this agreement, or?
Oh, he left. No, I was reading the quick claim, and it's like, wait, where is that at? And then it's kind of weird the way they wrote it. No, I agree. I just wanted to make sure that we've been talking about that side, that the other side over by the Horton Gym, because they need that access, that we have it all covered. So Eric did a great job of getting me that information quickly, so it's good to me.
Great. Any other questions?
Do you need a motion?
Yes, a motion, please.
Move that we accept the shared use agreement with the Ruidoso Municipal Schools for parking facilities at the Horton Complex.
Second. With the motion and second, roll call vote. Sena?
Counselor Lutterman,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
It all approved. Item number 9, discussion and possible action on Watershed Advisory Committee recommended projects in the amount of $54,000. Mr. Voida.
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, so this is a timely topic to discuss with the total organic carbon, but this is just the special revenues that come from the Grindstone recreational area that's split 70-30 with the Parks and Rec and Watershed Committee. And so we recommended 2 projects with this last year's allocation, $20,000 being for forestry maintenance around the reservoir and throughout village properties. And then the erosion control improvements that were presented in the master plan today for $34,000.
So now I'm hesitant about the forestry maintenance and knowing all the wood cutting that would go on, that would bring up that TOC, but what, is Dick still here? What areas are we looking at, or what is that portion for?
We're looking at mostly, maintenance of the reseeding juniper, the sprouting juniper.
Oh, that's right, you
spraying the
did mention,
juniper,
that's right.
Not taking any big wood,
Okay,
except we didn't have to cut like 34 hazard trees out of the area around Grindstone.
okay. Thank you.
I move that we accept the Watershed Advisory Committee's recommendation, recommended projects in the amount of $54,000.
Second.
That's you, Mayor.
Man, you guys moved on, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, we
Another
have
break.
a roll call, please.
Counselor Lutterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
May have to let Mayor Pro Tem run still a little more often.
That's right, I told him, take another break.
Man, you guys zipped right on. Item number 10, discussion and possible action on acceptance of quitclaim deed for Lot 7B, Block 16 for Forest Heights subdivision, Ruidoso, Lincoln County, New Mexico.
Mayor Crawford, councilors, so Councilor Coughlin requested a map for this donation of property for our Klamath pump house, and I apologize, I sent it to the clerks, but it ended up not getting in the agenda packet. But the Klamath pump house is here on Alamo and Klamath Road. Over here, this is Meacham, and then here's White Mountain Drive. to give you a little bit of reference.
Okay.
It goes by Club Gas all the way up. It's real steep up there. We had to put that pump house up there, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, maybe longer, to keep pressure for the homes that were up there.
Got it.
And so now they're donating that property?
Well, from my understanding, it should have been, it just never got filed, and so the owner just wants to get it off of their tax burden, and so they're just doing a quick claim deed and donating it to get it off of their name.
Okay,
I will make a motion.
make it.
I'll move to approve the acceptance of quitclaim deed for Lot 7B, Block 16 of Forest Heights subdivision, Ruidoso, Lincoln County, New Mexico.
Second.
No more discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Santa.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Awesome. Number 11, discussion and possible action on easement agreement with Board of Education of Ruidoso Municipal Schools through Tract 1A, replat of Ruidoso School Tract in Palmer Gateway subdivision, Ruidoso, New Mexico, for ingress, egress, and drainage at the Horton Complex. Mr. Boyda.
Mayor, proper councilors, so this is the easement agreement for the Horton Complex. This will give us a 30-foot ingress egress on the east side of the property, so going back to the fenced-in area, and then give us the continued drainage across the school's property, and that's where the infiltration basin will be installed by the admin building to carry that water across the front of that building.
So Eric, I have a question. On Exhibit B, it shows the area that we're talking about, but on that left line that's there, how close is that to the building on part of the Horton?
For
Yeah, where's the
facility?
property or
It's
property
a-
line in relationship to the end of the building?
It's very close. I think it's like 4 feet away or something.
'Cause the reason I ask is because I've noticed that the school's been parking vehicles into the building. So by the time they stick out, that takes away part of that 30-foot easement, and really you're probably down to, what's the length of a car? 15 feet or so?
Well, so with the change configuration for the drainage project, that kind of big pavement area that's on the south side of that stairs and the area that you're talking about, the stormwater basin is actually going to protrude out into that. And so there's going to be just a 30-foot ingress egress through there. So there won't be parking along the building where the school's parking, but they'll have kind of an enclosed parking area in that little kind of cove there.
So there's an entrance at that end of the building. That entrance would still be accessible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Counselor, you have any idea why they're parking over there like that?
No, I think because when they enter the building, they use that side entrance by Dr. Bickard's office. They don't come in through the front door. They come in through that side.
Yeah,
So for
that's-
some reason, they're parking over against the building. I don't know why.
And there should, based on the amount of parking that I've seen, they should still have adequate parking in that.
Oh, there definitely is, but for some reason they're parking there. It could also be because then when they come off of work at the end of the day, because they got all that shade from the building and their cars aren't heated up. I don't know, I'm just,
But Ron and I noticed that they were parked right up against the Horton,
yeah.
and we're like, why are they parking over there? It doesn't make any sense, but maybe that's it.
That could be it.
I move that we accept the easement agreement with Board of Education of Ruidoso Municipal Schools through Tract 1A replat of Ruidoso School Tract in Palmer Gateway Subdivision, Ruidoso, New Mexico, for ingress, egress, and drainage at the Horton Complex.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? None. Mr. Santa?
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Boyd. Item number 12, discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2021-18, a resolution of the Village of Ruidoso, New Mexico, authorizing the submission of a New Mexico Community Development Block Grant Program application to the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division. Go ahead, Adam.
Mayor, Council, this is the 2022 Community Development Block Grant. And with this, we did have 4 public meetings, input meetings. And one of the recommendations is the Pine Cliff area for the water and sewer rehab. If the council decides to move forward with this resolution, we can move forward with the survey to load up on our income.
Adam, just out of curiosity, what other projects were proposed at these public meetings?
It was various roadways around the village of Ruidoso and sewer line extensions. It was the majority of them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? We get a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
We adopt the resolution 2021-18, a resolution of the Village of Ruidoso, New Mexico, authorizing a submission of a New Mexico Community Development Block Grant Program application to the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division.
Second.
Did you get that, Ron?
Hope so.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Counselor Lutterman.
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Salas.
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Thanks, Adam.
Adam, thanks
Number
for hanging
13,
in.
Thank you, Adam. Discussion and possible action on agreement with Lincoln County Adult Literacy Program, the New Mexico nonprofit corporation, to provide office space and other logistical support to the adult literacy program in Lincoln County. Diane?
This is an agreement that we've done every year with the Lincoln County Adult Literacy Group. For the 5 years that I've been here, we've done it every year. We provide a little bit of office space, a computer, access to a printer, and also a telephone. And there's no financial impact. We don't exchange funds of any kind.
Do we have people that are taking advantage of it?
That is something that is really difficult to define. There's times that we have had 4 or 5 tutors that are continually meeting with people, and they've had people at the jail, and they've also had people tutoring at the end of the Mountain Gods. Unfortunately, due to COVID, everything has dropped off. As far as I know right now, they have 1 student.
Okay, thank you, Diane.
So there has been a change in this agreement since last week. It was something that I had brought up and spoke to Zach about. Line 5 in the agreement, there will be, under this agreement, $83 per month for use of the office space and equipment provided herein. So their rent basically would be $83. And it's for the point that I was concerned with anti-donation and that we're charging other entities that we should charge them something very reasonable. And so that's been added into here.
Okay, and when that's what we got so we didn't think that there was a way because of the public good or whatever that we could donate that space.
I think it can contribute to it, but there probably needs to be a money element to it as well.
Where did we get $83?
It's $1,000 a year.
Where did you get $1,000? I was just curious.
I don't know, it just came up. So the one thing we can do is, because they haven't requested funds from the council, is when it comes through our budget process and the funding that we do for various organizations, they could apply for some funding, and that would help cover that.
That's the definition of government right there. We're going to give you some money to pay us back.
No, they have to come to the IFC board first.
I can't understand
The
you.
IFC committee, just like all the other ones come.
Yeah, it's just a matter of fairness, treating everybody the same is really what it's about. And yeah, they put in a request and go to IFC.
Did they say, do they know that we're going to charge them?
I've spoke to the coordinator, Robin Gilton, and she's prepared that they might have to be paying some rent.
Well, I can address it since I'm on the adult literacy board. I took over after Rifle. He'd served on there.
Joe, I know I love to hear your wisdom, but I can't understand the flipping words you're saying.
Why's that?
Oh, take your
You
mask.
sound like my wife.
I can't understand. What did he say?
You sound like his wife.
Oh, okay.
I only meant that,
In a positive,
Yeah.
reassuring, loving way. I understand.
so I can address that, is that being on the board, the adult literacy board there for, I don't know how many years now, took over for Rifle after he didn't have some time to do that since he was kind of consumed with everything he was doing. But generally you get a grant from the state, from the adult literacy statewide organization, and that generally, it doesn't necessarily fund the whole operation, but it pays for the director and pays that salary. So this year, they weren't even allowed to even submit an application for the grant. So the funding has pretty much dried up. Robin has acquired a few small grants here and there, but they're kind of running on fumes. And as Diane stated, that with one tutor, it's because of many of the students don't have the ability to do the long distance tutoring. So that whether they don't have a laptop, don't have access to internet or Wi-Fi, and so on. But another place that they did go into also was a Nest at times, where they would work with students at the Nest.
Yep.
And even with their children. But right now, so the funding, as far as them paying, I know that we can look at it from a governmental standpoint as far as a compensation or getting something to not be subject to the anti-donation clause. So I agree that they could come in and ask for that, but right now to actually charge the $83 a month, I don't think, in talking with Robinson, it pretty much shut the doors down because she has cut down tremendously on her hours just to keep the doors open because of the lack of funding, the lack of money. And of course, with the COVID, generally, you all have been to the adult literacy spelling bee, and some of you have even taken part of it. That was one of our fundraisers, so that has definitely limited the ability to even fundraise on their own as an organization, as with many other places.
Yes, and I just wanted to say that the New Mexico Coalition for Literacy, which was the main foundation for funding for the literacy program, is no longer. It no longer exists.
So, Joe, let me ask you a question. You said that they've been going to the Nest and working with the children as well?
So they have. No, like a child might be there, but they don't actually work with, because you have to be X amount of age, old, but it still impacts the kids.
So if they're not getting funding from another source, and they set up as an adult, can they do child literacy?
No. No, there's, adult literacy, you have to be a certain age, and then you have to, they test you, and you have to say it this way is, you can only read to a certain level. If you read above, then they can't grant you the help.
I understand, but if they were getting money from the state to do adult literacy, and now the state, they can't get that money from the state, can they change their mission temporarily until they're able to get that money?
I don't know, that'd be something that we'd have to look into.
I've got something I'm working here, that's why I'm asking those questions.
Yeah.
But why couldn't we change why would we have to, to me, we're kicking them. And I think that that's an excellent program. I don't think we should charge them.
Well, it has to do with that anti-donation thing's what he's getting around. Tim, did you have something to shed light on
I'm
it?
still trying to understand, how do they make money off of providing a service out of our facility? Are they making money off providing a service?
No.
So if they're just providing a service to the community, that's consideration. It's not like if they're profiting. If you had an organization that was going in, regardless if they're for-profit or not for-profit, and they're making money, then they'd be receiving compensation. They'd be benefiting off of our property. That's what anti-donation's about.
Well, and what's the difference between social groups and things that are doing things for the public that we let the convention center? They use the convention center at no cost, don't we?
All kinds of facilities are used at no cost that provide services to other people. You know, I don't see where, if they're not profiting off of it, I don't see where there's an anti-donation. They're providing a service to the community. That's consideration for using our facilities.
But on that, there's a nonprofit fee, because SAS would get a discount when we would have our option.
And other village properties like the Women's Club, that's owned by the village and they are paying rent for that. You know, so there's other entities that are using village-owned properties that are paying. So that's why I was saying just make it fair, but.
I think that situation, don't they totally occupy that building?
Yes,
Nobody else gets to use it.
100%.
And they make money, I mean, they
Yeah.
are making money.
And then SAS, you know, they do fundraisers to raise money to do their thing. This is just pure service.
It is just pure service.
So,
At the library, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine.
The way that it works is that it doesn't matter whether they're there or not, the library's still gonna have the lights on, and they're just occupying a little bit of space there.
No different than the homeschooling programs and
No
all that
different.
stuff that we have, right?
No different, other than the fact that they are a nonprofit organization.
Lawyer, you still have the same opinion?
This came up several years ago when I wrote an opinion letter based on an old case that's still good law. And it says, I wrote, despite the clear language of the anti-donation clause, our courts have ruled that the anti-donation clause is not violated by the expenditure of municipal funds for public purposes on public property. However, an earlier court stated the following regarding public purposes provided by private individuals and corporations. And the court stated there, within the state, we have many private corporations engaged in educational work, and a still greater number serve some other useful public purpose. Private individuals are likewise engaged in pursuits of a similar nature. If all these individuals and corporations could be given public money to aid them in carrying on the work in which they are engaged, there would practically be no limit upon the various agencies of government in the expenditure or donation of public funds, and the constitutional provision in question would be a vain, useless, absurd, and meaningless aggregation of words and sentences. I mean, the obvious distinction is that they're talking about actually that government entity cutting a check and
Giving money.
as opposed to donating property. So maybe you could, make that distinction.
I think we ought to hire them to provide services, pay them. I'm just kidding.
What's the difference in us having a joint powers agreement with the schools, the Little League, and,
The fields?
yeah?
Well, because we get use out of them too for our softball, baseball teams, soccer teams.
I just don't think we should charge these people. I think it's a service. It's a good service, and I don't think.
I don't know. How strong do y'all feel about that? I mean, we can make a motion and vote on it. I'm kind of with Susan on it. It just seems like a mountain out of a molehill to me.
Zach, you read off that whole big thing, but what's your legal opinion? Can we provide them space at no charge and be good?
See, this is what you pay a
Well,
lawyer for.
to me, it sounds like, stating from Manager Judge stated, and also from our Attorney Zach Cook, that, yes, we can.
Is what?
The yes, is that, so if we get a hard yes or no from both of you, what do you say, yes or no?
To me, the service that they're providing to the community, it seems like we should be giving them some type of grant to provide that service and provide the space and the consideration that they pay is providing that service to the community.
So the board should decide that we're not gonna that you're not gonna give the service here unless you get a grant from them. I'm just throwing that out
I'm
there.
just putting that out there because that seems like it's a plus for the community. It's the
Oh, sure,
community
I absolutely agree.
a great value for that, and then we're gonna turn around and charge them. It just doesn't,
Well,
seems like we should be paying them as a nonprofit to provide a service.
And they're not in there full-time. She utilized the office.
The grave concern I have is that
yeah,
you're gonna
they-
kill the
they-
program.
They've gone to quarterly meetings now.
I know that right now that she has written a grant. I'm not sure where she's written the grant to. She's supposed to find out sometime next month
Right now, with no
whether or
funding,
not
it
she's
sounds like the
approved.
program's doomed.
I mean, I hate to say it like this, but I mean, we pay for animal service, right?
Well, we've done a study to show that it kind of falls and becomes incumbent on the community to take care of loose animals. And so we found out that a long time ago, it was costing us more money
Yeah.
to house them and then euthanize most all of them. And so with the Humane Society, we supplement them a little bit. They do their other fundraising and things. And we found it actually saves the village of Ruidoso money and provides a better service, win-win.
Can I make a motion to postpone this to the next meeting? Because I think there's some discussions need to happen. And I would like to have that opportunity to have those discussions with Diane and with Joe, since they're both part of this. I've got an idea of something that can happen.
Okay?
Because right now, it sounds like they have no money coming in.
Zero.
And if $83 a month is gonna put them out of business, they're on the teetering on the edge as it is. And I do agree that it's a very vital program and should probably be expanded. There's a lot of people that are having literacy issues. I mean, look at our schools. The kids are reading at fourth grade level. We got 40% of our kids that are reading proficient or above, and that's cause for celebration. Well, to me, that's 60% or not. That's failure. But we need to work on this, and I've got an idea.
The adults though, I mean, they can't, the adults that need the literacy, and a lot of times it's the Hispanic that's coming in. Without these programs, they can't help their children. And so I think that, I mean, there's only one, what's gonna happen if we wait for a month?
Nothing. We'll just continue on. I think our attorney, Zach Cook, has something to say.
So I wrote that opinion that I just cited from in 2016, and I apologize for not having done this before the meeting today. But I just looked at the opinion today, the 1940 case that I was relying on in 2016. And there was a case in 2018 that cites back to that case. And I think this was about a textbook loan program. And the Supreme Court, in the 2018 case, goes through several cases where they found that it was a violation of the anti-donation clause, including the case that I relied on, and said, they say, in this case, the textbook loan program does not involve any donation or gift to students or private schools. So this was a case of a government entity loaning out books, much like you guys are contemplating loaning out space. And it says in that, there was no gift, there was no donation. And so the anti-donation clause was not violated.
So,
Make anybody feel any better?
with this, going to Council Coffin, wanting to make a motion as far as postponing to discuss, I think this agreement really is just about housing, where they're going to operate and where they're going to stay. It's not about the operation. And I believe that what Council Coffin is wanting to look at and have discussions about is the survivability of the organization and how that organization can survive, not necessarily about where it's going to be housed. This could be, we can pass this agreement right now, that's securing their housing, where they're going to operate out of, and then we can have the discussions about his ideas and thoughts of how this organization can move on. And
Absolutely. I would say, whether you want to remove the dollar amount out of here or not, I still want to have that conversation like pretty quick.
yes, you bet.
Yes, sir, Tim.
Mayor, Judy, you got any opinion on this matter?
Because I understand what you're doing now is you have volunteers that come in and do the teaching.
Yes.
And what kind of materials do they need?
It just depends on what they're tutoring them for. Some are tutored in math, some are tutored in
So
reading.
pencils, paper,
Pencils, papers, they have a few workbooks that they work with them. And
who's buying those? The adult literacy people?
The adult literacy,
And you've got the director's salary.
And the director's salary.
Right.
that's correct.
Right.
Mayor, councilors, this discussion was, the same discussion happened a few years ago with the same situation, and I think the summary of that conversation was exactly what Tim had said, that the benefit that was coming to the community outweighed the, what we were giving up, which was space only. And since there was other people that were doing homeschooling in the library, they felt that that was a justifiable use of the library facilities. And that's why the agreement kept going with no monetary value, I believe.
I mean, I'm totally comfortable with taking it back to like it was, but still entering into the conversation. I think Coughlin wants to figure out a way to raise some funds.
I've got a way, I have a way.
Okay, so are we good with going in and approving it with zero amount, and then you find out what it would take to, because obviously they need help with supplies.
I can get a check to them in the next couple of days.
Yep. So what do you want, what are you saying?
Do you want
Keep it at 1,000 a year?
5 in or out?
I'll leave that to the rest of you.
Oh.
You know, I still think, it's my personal opinion, that there needs to be some type of compensation in it. However, that, yes, just like every organization, they offer things and a benefit to the community. But if the rest of you believe that there should not be, in this instance, a charge for the space and the equipment, then I'm willing to go with that. I mean, I'll vote yes either way.
Okay.
You want me to?
I'd like you to make a motion with zero if you
Yeah.
want to. That's your idea. I'm not supposed to say that, am I?
Or you just strike it.
I move
Five.
that we accept the agreement amending the $1,000 per year with Lincoln County Adult Literacy Program, a New Mexico nonprofit corporation to provide office space and other logistical support to the adult literacy program in Lincoln County.
Would the author accept a friendly amendment to omit number 5 on the terms and conditions of the agreement?
Absolutely.
Second.
Okay. Any final discussion? Nope. Roll call. Mr. Sena. Okay.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
And I appreciate you guys taking the diligence, the same amount of tenacity that for $83 a month that you took with the water rates and the other items that we've had today. It wasn't a dollar figure with you folks. It was about what's right and wrong. So I really applaud you guys. And so Coughlin, did you have something else to say, Diane?
I just said, don't leave.
Okay.
Okay.
After this meeting, I want to
I
talk.
mean, you wanted her to stand up there the whole time?
No, you can sit down.
I'll go sit back down for a
Okay.
minute. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Oh, well, when we break for closed session, it'll just take like a minute to talk to you.
Okay, item number 14 is discussion and possible action on a joint powers agreement between the Village of Ruidoso and the Board of Education for the Ruidoso Municipal School District for placement of a school resource officer. And we have our new chief, Gary Gold.
Go for the gold.
Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. All right, it's my first presentation today, wow. And it's really a simple one. Obviously, it's the joint powers agreement between our schools and our Board of Education in our village. I reviewed the JPA, and it's amazing. I'm very surprised of how well this thing is written, and everything runs smooth. You guys have been dealing with it already for, I don't know, how many years, 5 years? So my main concern was the legality issues. Obviously, there's criminal issues and there's school issues. I just want to ensure that Mr. Beltran, our SRO officer, is not enforcing any school issues, because that puts us in a big liability. And when I met with our superintendent, Mr. Bickert, and Clint, they assured me that Mr. Beltran is just following every procedure possible. And the relationship between the village and the school district is amazing. So I got really nothing to say about that other than endorsing this JPA
Excellent.
as being a tremendous thing for our village.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve joint powers agreement between the Village of Ruidoso and the Ruidoso Municipal School District for placement of school resource officer.
Second.
Hey, no more discussion, but we do love Sal Belcher.
Absolutely.
He's an amazing guy. Thank you very much.
Roll call, please, Mr. Sinai.
Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Counselor Salas was getting rid of that, one of those, that special. Della Speciale.
Did he take his little lunchbox with him?
Yeah. Item number 15 is discussion and possible action on change order number 2. Request number 7 through 10 with Smith Co. Construction Inc. for the Alto Crest Water Treatment Plant, Plant 3. Rehabilitation Project GO 1709. Requesting an extension of 15 days to January 19th, 2022, and increasing the contract amount by $1,755.03, including gross receipts tax. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Yeah, this is for change order number 2 for items 7 through 10. Number 7 is lowering the existing utility lines in the grading area. It was for $390.59 plus GRT and a 1-day extension. And then number 8 was providing additional power to lower enclosure, but that's no longer applicable, but they wanted to keep it on just for tracking purposes. And then number 9 is for electrical changes. It's a no-cost change order, and the contract change time is for 14 days. And then number 10 was the testing allowance overage. So the summary was for items 7 through 10, the contract change amount for $1,755.03, including GRT, and an extension of 15 calendar days. I'd like to talk a little bit about item number 10, about the allowances. I looked in the specs, and the allowance was included in the bid form. The sum of the allowance is an estimated amount. Then the contractor will be reimbursed only for the cost involved by the party providing the service, and no markup such as overhead and profit shall be charged by the contractor. Services may be less than, equal to, or greater than the estimated allowance amount. The contractor will be paid only the actual cost of the services. So the actual, or the original contract allowance was $10,000. The testing amount was $11,227.88.
What's that item?
Where estimated allowance overage was $1,227.88. And the items that were performed is soil analysis, and there was 1 set of tests. Soil densities, which included 8 tests. Concrete test was a total of 10 sets, and which had included slump test, air entrainment, and then the test of the concrete was at 10 days and 28 days. The other items that might have included the increase was the additional contract, or the additional concrete from the ADA ramp and the sidewalk grading from the first change order. And so that's likely for a little bit of additional testing. And then the closest lab was in Las Cruces, about 110 miles away. This was within the specified limits of 150 miles. However, the further location may have resulted in a slight increase in the technician's time. I agree with the increase of the testing. I think it was real important because where these items are sitting on, we wanted to make sure that the foundation was good, which included the generator, the
chemical storage for the concrete cylinders and the walkways and the ADA ramp. But the problem was, we didn't know there was an overage until they submitted it through the payout. So when I spoke to Katie from Mosen and Corbin, she didn't even know. So we were kind of blindsided. So I think that's where some of the problem was, we weren't informed. I think what we're going to do in the future is definitely improve the communication with the contractor and, make sure we keep the engineers and the contractor and all of us talk real well. I think there was a slight breakdown. And then the other thing we're thinking about doing is make sure it's brought up in the pre-construction meeting before the project actually starts. And then the other thing is we're thinking about, and I think they've already done it, is increase the allowance to from $10,000 to $15,000. And I believe it's already in place. I think that's what they're doing on the projects now. And then when speaking with Katie, she is also going to add this to the pre-construction projects that she deals with in the future. So if you guys have any questions, fire.
I just want to say, I want to introduce you to Councilor Coughlin. Do you have something to say?
Yeah.
I know you would.
So, you know me, it's like you're hiring professionals and they're that far off on their estimates, they're off by 12% there. But you said that they're not allowed to add any overage, so there's a bunch of invoices that are added, that are here. And on these, I'm seeing administration per hour and so forth. So that $1,200 amount, did they just add up all those invoices and subtract 10,000 and say, here's the amount? Because then they're charging for administrative charges on top of it.
No, I think it was actually for the invoices, that were charged.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is every single one of these invoices say administration per hour for billing and whatnot. And you said that when you read off the agreement, they're not allowed to charge for overhead. But if
I don't believe I said that.
Overhead and profit, yeah, you said they weren't charging for overhead and profit, they were just charging for basically material.
So, Mayor Crawford, if I could
Yes.
interject. So the way that these allowances work, the specification obligates a third party to do the testing. So they're impartial to either us or the company. So in this instance, they hired Terracon out of Las Cruces. So Las Cruces, Terracon has a project manager that manages the technicians that have to come out and make sure the reports get to the contractor. So that company still has an overhead and profit, but typically if you have a subcontractor for a contract with a construction firm, they would charge a profit on top of that. So they would get the invoice from Terracon and then they charge 15% on top of that. That's not allowed. So all that we're doing is we're just paying for Terracon. And, the specification, the $10,000 was just an estimate. And inside the specification, it explicitly states that it's about us just reimbursing for the actual cost of testing. So, this testing's super important for us. We just not that many years ago, we dealt with the litigation tied to the whole road culvert that was exactly tied to stuff not getting tested. So this testing makes sure that we get a valuable product and it meets all of our requirements. And so, in future projects, we're not going to try to pad it. But I do think for a $3.5 million project, it was a little low on the $10,000 for the testing. But in the future, when we're starting to get close to that end of the allowance, what we should have done is brought a change order to increase that allowance before the funding was already spent. And so what Randy was saying is, we want to try to increase the communication so that we put it on the contractor and the engineering firm to tell us, hey, we're almost running out of this allowance money, let's bump it up to the appropriate level.
Who was ordering the tests?
The tests are ordered from the,
Smithco?
yes, and so,
But they just didn't realize how many tests they had ordered because you said that Katie was surprised when she got the bill, so that's where the
in all of
communication's coming in.
In all of the projects that I've ever dealt with, we've never gotten close to using the allowance amount. And so it might be something that, people are just not keeping as appropriate tabs on as they should. But all the specs have been, or the tests have been verified by the engineer that they were all appropriately done and necessary to make sure that we met the specified concrete mix and soil compaction.
So who determined the $10,000 allowance? Was that Smithco when they bid, or was that in our?
No, it's already filled out in the bid tab.
Okay,
The
so.
engineer.
So we're the ones that, the engineer that we used said $10,000. Who was the engineer?
Okay. It's a combination of village staff and the engineer that set up those allowance costs.
Okay.
And so, to the point of a $3.8+ million contract, they missed it on that $10,000, and then there was an additional change order one for $7,785, and that was for was that the unforeseen stuff in the ground, or was that for what was that for, remind me?
So, are you talking about the pipes that had to be lowered?
No, change order one.
Change order one for $77.85 that we had already approved. I remember there was a reason we approved that one too. So the point I'm making is, it's a change order, whatever. It's, I guess it was a swag on that.
Yeah, it doesn't say what the.
I think that one was you had to build a retaining wall in there, I believe. didn't
That's
you?
on Country Club.
Oh.
What was it? Was this the one on the chlorine, the treatment?
Yeah, there was some change orders around the chlorine building.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, so there was some, I believe that there were some products that were no longer available for manufacture and had to be changed out for another product.
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Would someone, any other discussion?
I say Molson pays this.
I move that we accept the change order number 2, request numbers 7 through 10 with Smithco Construction, Inc. for the Alto Crest Water Treatment Plant, Plant 3 Rehabilitation Project, GO 1709, requesting an extension of 15 days to January 19th, 2022, and increasing the contract amount by $1,755.03, including gross receipts tax.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Sena.
Counselor Letterman.
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
No.
Counselor Jackson.
No.
Counselor Salas.
No.
Counselor Eby.
All right.
3-3.
There you go, Mayor.
Ooh, this is the most.
Well, what I want to say is, I know that we pay Molson to do these, and I said on here before when we would have 60 and 80 and even more $100,000 change requests. And I've been, in the field on jobs before where the best guesstimates, you can do all the figuring you want, but there are some things that happen. I think we going to have a great product. My answer is yay. I'll vote yes. So it'll pass and we'll pay. But it's very evident that the council does not like change orders and want to have, that's why I was really expecting Kate to be here to talk about it. So anyway, that's all I got to say, so.
And again, the reason I voted no is that I think Molson should pay this. tab.
Okay?
But they won't, and the contractor should get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want to, the guys that are doing the work, I know that they're
They're doing a
being
great job.
diligent. We have our people working on it, and so I don't think they would have brought it to us if they didn't think we needed to do it. So as always, I trust the people that we pay that do the great jobs that we get credit for too. But we do ask all the questions, and we will continue. Okay, item number 16. Discussion and possible action on change order number 2 and acceptance of the final completion with File Construction LLC for the Country Club tank replacement project, GO 1704, decreasing contract amount by $1,045.19, including gross receipts tax. Yes, sir, Randy?
Okay, hopefully this one's a little easier.
It's not going to be, because they're going to ask you, we had an increase before we got a decrease. I know.
I tend to.
Okay, this is for the Country Club tank, and for the approval of the final change order, which is a plus. The reason for that change order is we wanted to keep the other tank online while this tank is going through its warranty period, which is a year, and it already started months back. And we thought it would be a good idea to keep it online as a contingency, so if something happened, we would switch over to the old tank, and then we would, have a contingency plan to, in case we had to, work on the other tank. And so this was done, the only thing is they didn't have to cut and cap the pipe, for the tank. So what we plan on doing is once we get through the warranty period, we will do the cut and capping in-house. And I think the other thing I was going to mention is before the warranty period ends, we are going to go through and do a real thorough inspection to make sure everything's still in good shape. And the guys are going out there on a weekly basis, and daily actually, to check the levels and everything. But we do a pretty good inspection once a week, so we are keeping an eye on it. And the other thing I wanted to do is, I know a lot of people don't really have an idea of what happened through the project, so I've got a little PowerPoint presentation. I'll try to go through this pretty quick. This is pretty much the start of the project, and the project started January 6, 2020, and that shows the old tank, and you can even see the snow in the background. And then this is where they were performing the rock excavation for the rock wall, or for the wall that was going to go up. Next slide. And this was the concrete ring that they put in. And I know there was a lot of controversy with the foundation, and that created the first change order. But I think in the end, we came out with a really good product. The foundation, everything is very solid. We made the right move, I believe, in making sure that everything was in great shape. Next slide. This is a picture just kind of showing how they were putting the rock wall together. It was quite an interesting task. It took some skill on setting the blocks and getting it all lined up. I think they lost a bunch of hair during that process. Next slide. And this is a picture of the final foundation and the final product, or the final wall as everything's completed. You can see in this picture that they left it really good. The people that came in and did the tank was pretty impressed, because all the rods had to be dead on, so when they started putting the tank together, everything had to fit just right. Next slide. This is a picture of of the floor when they were putting it together. It's all bolted on, so there's quite a few bolts, and it's a painstaking process. Slide. And here they were actually putting a dome, started building that, and it kind of looks like a rocket ship, but they did a pretty good job. Once they started, they really moved on the project. And then, oh, I was gonna say all these slides are all in sequence. And this is where they were actually starting to put together the first part of the tank. And you can tell it's a pretty interesting process. Next slide. Here's where they're actually attaching the dome to the first section of the tank. And it's quite a process. Next slide. And then here it shows a picture of the hydraulic jacks that are located around the bottom of the tank. And then this is one of them right there. And it's amazing because what they do is they put the lid on it or the roof, and then the jacks actually jack up the section and then, or the whole portion of the tank. And then they come in and build the section underneath it, and then they jack that up. So it's a pretty neat process. Okay, next slide. And then that's when the first section and the roof was completed. And then they will jack that up and then start building the next section. And this is when the tank was about 95% completed. And it's pretty interesting. Next slide. This is the infamous leaks. So we had problems where it was leaking at the bit, at the bottom of the tank, and so I know it took a few tries to drain the tank and then to refill it, and we finally got it fixed. But that was, I mean, the key to it is we had patience and we all worked together as a team, and we kind of brainstormed it, and took a little bit of effort, but we finally got it.
What was the level of the water when the leaks started showing?
Probably about 3/4 full.
3/4?
Maybe about 30 something feet, 32, 33. Because in the beginning, it didn't leak at all. I mean, when it was like half full, and then it kept going up, and then it started, small leaks started coming around.
Just not enough caulk.
Yeah.
So what was the cause? What did you find out? What did you have to do?
It was kind of a couple of things. When they went back in, they did find a few spots that didn't really seal real good. And then what they did is they went through and every bolt on the bottom and on the side, on the inside of the tank, they torqued them all down, and then they put the cylinder around it.
Don't tell me it was Flex Seal.
No.
Wasn't Flex Seal?
Well, what I had mentioned is how I said the surefire method of the tank not leaking is don't fill it.
Yeah, that'll fix it every
They
time.
didn't really like that, but they actually had to spend a lot of money and a lot of time coming back. And I mean, they I'm sure it took a big hit out of their profits, so.
It was much more involved than I thought it would be.
I mean,
That was an impressive slideshow, by the way. Thank you for bringing that in.
was really good, thank you.
I just wanted you guys to see, kind of, what the process and different stages. And this shot right here is the completed project. This was actually taken from a drone. One of my operators has a drone, and he flew it all the way up. And it kind of gives you a good view of everything. And one thing I wanted to mention is the fence around it satisfied a significant deficiency from the
Homeland Security,
from the NMED cemetery survey in 2017. So that took care of that issue. And but the nice thing about it is when I really had an issue or something, I fought for it, and they were pretty good to work with. the project started out really quick and, you know, then the COVID hit and it created a lot of issues and things to work around. And then the project dipped and then it came back, but in the end, I think we came out with a great product.
I agree. So when you're still, maybe in the back of your mind, you guys have a plan that after it's emptied, the old one, and maybe looked at, tested, you may be able to use it for fire prevention, fire protection, mitigation?
It all depends on, you know, the shape of it. I know we've got a crew coming out starting this month to do some inspections, tank inspections. I think I've got 5 tanks, all the big ones, the 2 5 millions, the 1 million and the 3 million, and then little D. And then we're gonna go in probably another 5 or 6 until we get them all. So, but that's a plan. I mean, if the tank is halfway decent, that's a crapshoot right now until we get the inspection. Plus, you know, the cost of if we had to put a lot of money in it, would it be worth it? So that's something we'll have to decide later.
Okay.
My only concern is at the beginning of this whole project, we were told that other tank was not worth rehabbing.
You know,
now all of a sudden it might be.
Well, I mean, what I would like to do, Councilman Kaufman, is, you know, at least look at it, you know. And once we have the other tank, you know, switched over and the other one cut and capped, you know, then we can look at it, but it might not be even worth it. So.
Okay.
It all depends on the dollar and, you know, if it's feasible.
Yep. Okay, I think we've heard enough. That was very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy.
You guys did a great job, Eric, on the instruction of that. It was very impressive. A lot more to it than I thought. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor. Mayor, I move to approve change order number 2 and acceptance of the final completion with File Construction LLC for the Country Club Tank Replacement Project, GO 1704, decreasing contract amount by $1,045.19, including gross receipt tax.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any final discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Sena.
Counselor Salas?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Counselor Lutterman? Counselor Cornelius?
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Counselor Jackson? Thank you.
Man, I'd have lost a bet there, Counselor.
I know.
You saw me pointing at you.
No, I didn't. I just figured you were probably betting. And I didn't want to pick that previous scab, so.
Okay, thank you for not doing that. We all need to heal.
Yeah.
That concludes our regularly scheduled program, so we're going to head into closed session. So if I can get a motion to certify, please.
Okay, hold on. I gotta get there. Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into closed session for discussion of limited personnel matters, Statute 1015-1H2, NMSA 1978. Secondarily, discussion subject to the attorney-client privilege pertaining to threatened or pending litigation in which the Village of Ruidoso is or may become a participant, Statute 1015-1H7, NMSA 1978. Any action taken as a result of the closed session will be brought back into open session.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Jackson? Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius? Counselor Salas?
Aye.
Counselor Lutterman? Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now go into closed session. Who do we need to keep? Manager Dodge?
Just Chief Gold, and that's it.
Chief Gold, would you please stay behind? Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. I know it's totally